Tipp today in association with Slattery's of Pecan, your main Peugeot dealer for over 50 years in the Premier County. Slattery'sGarage.ie.
Good morning, welcome along to Tipp Today, 1800 938 007. That's our free phone number. It won't cost you if you want to make a call to us. And Leanne is producing. Coming up on the show this morning, I'll be speaking to Joe Noble in just a few moments' time. Deputy Alan Kelly will join us from our Nenagh studio. Dr. Clodagh Tait from the Department of History at Mary Immaculate College will talk to us about her research into the practice of churching in Ireland, because we've been discussing that over the last few days and hearing some churching experiences as well. Of course, our Friday panel will be here to unpack the big topics of the week. So all of that and more on the way. You can text and WhatsApp 083 311 3311. You can email tiptoday@tippfm.com, and we're always glad to hear from you. Now, our great friends at Slattery's of Nenagh, they're celebrating a remarkable 80 years in business, and to mark this milestone, they've teamed up with us here on Tipp Today to give away a €50 voucher every morning this week, and we have our final voucher to give away right now. So whether you're a long-time customer or looking to discover all that Slattery's has to offer, this is your chance to treat yourself, courtesy of one of Tipperary's most trusted and well-loved businesses. So to be in for the chance of winning that final voucher, all you have to do is text or WhatsApp the word Slattery's to 083 311 3311, and give us your name and your details as well, obviously, and we will have the draw for that in about an hour's time. Let's have a look at the front pages of some of your newspapers. The Irish Examiner to begin with, and right across the newspapers is coverage of the beginning of the World Cup. But the main story on the Examiner today: untargeted efforts by government to cushion the blow of energy price hikes have done little to protect the most vulnerable, while giving significant support to high-income households. Now, that's the charge from the ESRI, which in a report to be published today says energy prices increases have a clear regressive impact, placing a greater burden on low-income households. Now, I wouldn't have had to put a team together to research that to come up with that conclusion, but there you go. Also on the Examiner today, we're reading that the government is preparing to restrict access to homeless services for people who are not long-term residents of Ireland. Junior Housing Minister John Cummins, he told the Dáil this would introduce lawful and habitual residency as eligibility criteria, saying it would ensure a harmonised and consistent approach to state support. Also reading on the Examiner today that Irish scientists are among a team of global experts who have warned that human activities pushed global warming to 1.37 degrees Celsius in 2025 and will rise to a significant milestone of 1.5 in 4 years. The Irish Daily Mail, and they're telling us that government departments run by Fine Gael ministers will cough up almost €75 million more than their Fianna Fáil counterparts to fund the €646 million bailout in education. It's according to the Mail today. But the clawback has sparked allegations from disgruntled ministers that Minister Jack Chambers and the Department of Public Expenditure and Reform are acting like a dictatorship. My favourite photograph from the World Cup so far is on the front of the Independent, and it's a Mexico fan watching his team against South Africa in the opening game there of the 2026 World Cup in Mexico City. He's wearing a kind of a sombrero, but it's very elaborately designed. It looks absolutely fantastic. And he's got sunglasses with the World Cup image on both sides of the sunglasses. It's just a wonderful photograph. The Indo also telling us that thousands of homeowners who have solar panels fear that they will lose payments for electricity sold back to the grid after a technical issue. Now, homeowners have discovered the electricity they are exporting to the grid has not been displayed by ESB networks since May 25th. And finally, we have a look at the Irish Times. And the lead story on the Times today: 2 consultants are taking separate judicial reviews against the HSE, seeking the right to offer private care in new publicly funded surgical hubs. Now, my understanding of that is because they have older contracts, but there you go. Also on the Times today, Ohanish Alumina complained to the European Commission about difficulties the County Limerick alumina refinery faced shifting away from fossil fuels last year due to a lack of access to public funds. Notes of private discussions show, and of course, as you know, alumina in Ohanish in making headlines in recent times there about their links to Russia. If you want to make comment on any of that, 083 311 3311. Again, the email is tiptoday@tippfm.com. Now, this week we heard from political correspondent for the Irish Farmers Journal, Pat O'Toole, on how Ireland could face a substantial fine from the European Union because turf cutting is continuing in some areas. But just the mere talk of the bog and turf brought back so many memories to so many of our listeners. And I'm delighted to be joined now by our great friend Joe Noble. Good morning to you, Joe, and good to talk to you today.
There you are. Hold on, whoa, let's turn you off here.
You're going to turn me off there? And
You know, I turned you off on the radio. Yeah.
how are you, Joe?
You're here in Grant.
Yeah, before I talk to you about turf, you had a procedure yesterday. How are you feeling, Joe?
I'm Grant, if you're cramped in my belly and what have you, but you're here, look it. I'll go over it like, it's fine.
Yeah, you're doing okay.
Indeed, I will be. I'll get the results in 6 weeks, and sure, hey, I live or die. Be fine.
I'm sure you
but
will.
You know something?
Yes.
Before I do anything, then down there in Nenagh I had it done, right?
Yeah.
And they're all going to be listening in this morning, and I want to thank each and every single one of them. They were fantastic to me.
Were they?
One little nurse, no, they were all lovely. One little nurse, I took a shine to her. She was a little dote. She told me not to mention her name, so I won't mention her name. And the anaesthetist, oh my God, he was an out and out dote. He was showing me pictures of birds in his garden and everything, so now he'll know who he is. So I just want to thank them all. If that's okay.
Yeah, of course it's okay, and they looked after you extremely. Leanne was telling me, did you have some sort of surreal experience, Joe?
Yeah, I did. Actually, it was weird. I know sure people think I'm gone. Sure, I am going to do lally anyway. But no, a little cousin of mine was the only one that ever called me Joni.
Yeah.
And her niece started to call me after little Jackie died. And Jackie went before she was 40, she died of cancer. But we were the best of buddies. But all of a sudden, this nurse down there, she was calling me, it was my own name, like. Mm. And just before I was taken down for the procedure, she started calling me Joni.
Just out of the blue?
Out of the blue.
Ah.
None of the rest of them. And she wasn't up until then, and I was there a nice little while prior to being taken down.
Yeah. And did that help you, Joe? Did that?
It actually did. Yeah. Believe it or not, it did, Fran. I remember when they took me down then to the room before you go into the theatre, say where they're doing other old bits and bobs on you, and she came down with me, and I said it to her, and she says, oh my goodness, she said, I hope I didn't upset you. I said, no, actually, you brought me back fantastic memories, and she did.
Isn't that lovely?
I felt so relaxed. It was unbelievable. And normally I'd be bricking it like.
Yeah, of course.
But no. As I said, look.
But it helped you. It helped you to remain calm and all of that.
100%, 1,000%.
Yeah.
Now, as I said, look, I could be reading things into it and other people won't, but that's me, I believe.
Absolutely. And if it's good for you, Joe, isn't it great? I see when you post on social media, the amount of friends you have out there, it's
and they are brilliant, friends. They're really, and I want to thank every one of them. And I mean, Catherine Sherlock, she sent me a lovely bouquet of mass bouquet, and it was, the kindness that was shown to me all over. It was just amazing. It opens my, every time I see it, I don't expect anything like that. There's a reason I post for if I'm going into something like that, which I won't go into on the radio because it is a personal thing. Yeah. But that's my one and only reason that I put anything like that up. But it's and that worked for the first time in a lot of years, over about maybe 6 going on 7 years. I got a message off of the person involved, and that made my day as well.
Did it? Isn't that fantastic, Joe? Well,
it was brilliant.
I'm delighted for you, because at difficult times like that, you need all the support. And as I say, I see on social media all the time, you have a huge amount of support, a huge amount of love out there. You know, it's great.
And Daryl, and I thank each and you included, and Muriel, the whole lot, like Leanne, the whole lot of you. I mean, I'd be just amazed, to be honest with you, because I don't do anything to get publicity or nothing like that. I don't. But it just amazes me.
Yeah, when you see,
and I thank everyone.
I think a large part of it is when you come on the radio, people identify with you, Joe, because you call it as it is. A bit too much sometimes. But you know what I mean? You speak your mind, Joe, and that's rare enough nowadays, I think.
Well, I don't believe in this bull crap at all.
Yeah.
When I call a spade, and I always say, look, sometimes, yes, things can come out of the gob that I don't mean to come out. But if, anyone gets peed off with me or whatever, turn me off. just press that flipping button and get rid of me. Like, just skin off my nose. But no, everyone. I can't thank everyone. And there's even people, friends that I've never met. I met one lady actually in Lidl recently, and she introduced herself, but unfortunately my brain don't hold things too much now. But she actually had sent me a friend request and I accepted it, and it was through Tipp FM. That was my first time ever actually meeting her, which was again lovely, to put a face to the name.
Isn't it great? Isn't it great altogether?
Absolutely.
We were talking about the bogs and stuff, and as I say, an awful lot of people were in touch with us about this. You're from the same area as my father, down there around Ballybeg, and he spoke so fondly of the time on the bog there. You have memories of that, Joe?
Oh, friend, our bog was in Liscaveen, and because I was born in Liscaveen with it. But I loved it. The memories, they were fantastic. I mean, we go off. Of course, Neddy Billy comes into it again, doesn't he?
Will you just remind people of Neddy Billy again?
Oh, poor Neddy Billy. I love Neddy Billy. He used to take our fits, like. And, you could be out in the garden talking to Neddy Billy, and all of a sudden he'd get this mad figary, and he'd be jumping and hiding, and Mammy would be roaring at him.
He was a donkey, Joe, wasn't he?
Oh, he was, yeah.
Yeah, right.
Well, we don't call him donkey, we call him an ass. Well, anyway. But the donkey is the posh word, friend.
Oh, sorry, Joe, yes. He was an ass. Yeah. He was an ass. He was
an ass, absolutely. And he was a dote. But Daddy would go out and he'd tackle up Neddy Billy, and we'd get up in the cart and we'd head off to the bog. And, oh, God, I loved it. Mammy didn't take out Neddy Billy, obviously, didn't from under the thing. And she turned the cart back up on its wheels with the handles, the shafts, I think they were called, if I'm right.
Yeah.
Up in the air type of thing. And she'd have an old blanket and she'd throw it on the ground under there. And when it come to tea time, we'd have our little billy can. And she'd make tea and bread and jam sandwich or something underneath it. And you know something, friend? Tea that time never tasted as good.
Do you know, my father always said that the tea out of the billy can on the bog never tasted as good anywhere else.
It's the truth. And you'll be drinking old turf mould and everything, which is an old breezy day, like, to be blown into it, like. And never done as a bit of harm. But those are memories of fantastic. And Daddy was a messer. I would be there, and I'm sure I was only a child at the time, and I'd be trying to catch this turf. He'd be cutting it with this spady, like long yoke. There's names for that too, but I can't remember them. And he would fire it out, but he was a devil. You'd have your hands held out to catch it, and as sure as God, he'd throw the odd one in a different direction. So to get you in the forehead or to get you wherever, like, and he'd force those guys laughing then. But and then we'd load it up onto this carty little yoke wheelbarrow type of thing, and off we go. And then we go back footing it when to be, get dry, kind of, would be footing it. They were brilliant times. And then, of course, coming home, Neddy Billy would take a figure when we'd be bringing home the turf, wouldn't he? And he'd decide, affect this for a crack, like, I'm getting tired. So he'd lie down on the road.
You see?
And the turf, yeah. And us and the turf would go down on the road as well. And I was brilliant. They were great times. And, the world has changed so much. And they're trying to take away, all those traditions.
Yeah, and what do you make of it now? I mean, there's little turf cutting going on now, but the European Union, they're threatening us because the little amount that's going on now, they're going to fine us for substantial fines, in fact.
I think that's a thundering disgrace. They're taking away our heritage. They're taking away everything, trying, I should say, to take away everything from us in that line. And it's an absolute thundering disgrace if it's allowed to happen.
Yeah.
Because they were all our traditions. Look, I have memories that I can talk like that, so far my long-term praise. But, what are youngsters going to have to talk about their children in years and years to come?
Yeah, they were sitting on the couch looking at screens, I suppose, and smartphones.
Yeah, it's a shame now. The internet is a good thing too, at times, but it can be a pain in the hindquarters too. But no, I think when we joined the Europe, as I say, they're trying to dictate to us. They're trying to take away our traditions, our whatever.
Yeah, of course.
And it's horrible.
Yeah, they're saying that all the burning of turf contributes to all of the issues with climate change and with the condition of the air and
Look, that's a load of crap.
Do you think?
But look, what about the airplanes? What about them? Wouldn't they be causing more damage?
Well, they're certainly causing a lot of damage. You're right, for sure.
Absolutely. Then there's some misfortune going out cutting and now would be starting from bringing home the bird. Jeepers holy Moses has never done any of us any harm. Why is it all of a sudden years and years and years later doing this?
Yeah.
If it was that bad, it would have been doing it all the time, wouldn't it?
And when you were down there with your family, Joe, was there a lot of people down there cutting turf? Yeah.
Oh, God, yeah. And we even went from that to poor old Mammy, God love her, because Daddy used me well, And Mammy worked in Bornemona.
Did she indeed? Well, yeah.
She did. And she used to take me off on the back of the bike with her, and we'd go up and we'd get the old loco, and we'd go up the bog, and we'd be footing the turf in Bornemona.
And what did she do in Bornemona?
Footing the turf.
Oh, working for Bornemona, footing the turf.
Working for Bornemona, footing the turf, yeah.
Wow. By God, she was...
she was hard, poor old creator.
She was a great woman. That was tough work.
It was tough work, and she would take us up. It would just be so funny. Like, I was too young, right? But Anna, my sister, God rest her, she was older than me.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was a fella footing turf in the next plot in Bornemona, and he kind of took a shine to our Anna, right? But Mammy wasn't having it, and she always brought an umbrella with her. And she was threatening this fella with the umbrella. If he came in across that line, this is our plot, and you stay on your own side, and don't you dare come in here. Oh, it'd just be comical. And the memories are great. And at the end of the day, we'd go back with our loco, it'd come up and collect us all, and back down into the yard, and back on the bicycle, me up in the back of it, and away we go home.
That's great. And I'll bet when you look back, it seems like all the summers were sunny and all of that. Isn't that the way when we look back?
They were. We got proper seasons back then, really. I mean, we'd get a bit of snow for Christmas, and we'd have the sun and the heat for the summer, and the spring was beautiful. I always loved the spring anyway. I loved the autumn, believe it or not. But, we had proper seasons. We have nothing now. I think that we've piddled off your man upstairs somehow.
Do you think so?
I do.
Do you think so?
I do. Yeah, I definitely do.
And that's why it's all falling apart, Joe, you think? Is that it?
It's falling apart at the seams now. I mean, there's nothing. What is there out there now? And in fairness, Fran, as regards memories, people can go off on their sunny holidays, but even that is a bit risky at the moment as to where you can go.
Can I ask you before I let you go to come in on a conversation we've been having a few days this week, and we'll be discussing it later on as well. The whole business of churching, following the birth of a child, that a woman couldn't come back into church without being churched. Do you have memories of that, Joe?
No, I don't, but I Googled it.
Did you?
I only briefly got a little bit in the horses with saying now to Google. But, I often wondered, actually, because when Mammy had me, right, she had me at home in the house.
Yeah.
And my grandmother, this is what Mammy told me, my grandmother came, I think it was 2 or 3 days after it or something, and she whipped me away to be christened, but Mammy wasn't allowed to go to the christening. So Mammy never went into things like that. So I assume that it was something to do with that, which is a load of crap, wasn't it?
I presume
but
so. Yeah.
But you know something? In the 19th century, it was written down here so I won't forget. In the 19th century, before you be going getting your child, we say, like Nanny, take me off to get christened, right? And they put a white rag over my head or whatever. Something to do with the oils or something. And then you were supposed to use that for when, I don't know, a load of rubbish. But anyway, but they changed the rag in the 19th century and it became a fee. So you give money. By the church's terms, it was the church's terms.
How do you mean you paid a fee for the christening, was it?
Yeah. Well, I assume that's what it was. No. The priest sprinkled the woman with holy water in the shape of a cross, and in the 19th century, that accustomed terms became a fee. In the church's terms, it was an offering, a tribute due to God, not a fee. How the hell did they send the money?
So this was paying your dues for the churching then, not the christening. Is that it?
Yeah.
Joe?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
But they said it was a tribute. The offering was a tribute due to God. So how did they send the money up to him? Like, I don't think they had internet. Or
Revolut.
Oh, is that it? Oh, Jenny, God, you learn something new every day. When I read that, I thought that was funny. That was actually funny. And you know something?
What?
When they cleaned Joanne, right, the mother,
yeah,
the ceremony was marked that it was called the end of the green month of the woman's confinement. And you know what that meant?
What did that mean, Joe?
I'll tell you what it meant. It meant she was then normal to conduct her domestic life and sexual relationships with her husband.
So she was back again?
She was cleaned in, so she could fire away again until the next time.
Only you could explain that in that particular fashion.
What a way is that to explain it, like? But it was
oh, Lord, you are so funny. Joe, we wish you the best with your health. Lots of people are getting on to us to wish you well, and lovely to talk to you today. And I'm delighted things are going well for you. Thanks, Joe.
Lovely. Thanks a million,
Thanks, Joe.
friend.
Thanks, Joe.
You made me day. Thanks. Okay, bye-bye.
Same as that, Joe. Bye-bye, Jan. It's Joe Noble speaking to us today. 1800 938 007. Back in a moment.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Now, welcome back to Tip Today. We're closing the lines on our competition for Slattery's of Nenagh because we are inundated and our text and our WhatsApp completely blocked up with that. So we will close that right now. We will bring a winner to you a little later on. Let me be joined now from our Nenagh studio by Labour Deputy Alan Kelly. Good morning to you, Alan.
Good morning, Fran. And while the weather isn't great, it's meant to get a bit better later on this weekend than today. So hopefully my daughter Ava's just doing her last exam for the junior cert. So I hope it picks up for her and for many others who are potentially finishing up this weekend because it's been a stressful few weeks for
it certainly has.
all the
students. We wish your daughter the very, very best indeed. You've said, Alan, that elderly care is one of the biggest issues in your clinic at the moment. Now, we've been putting a spotlight on carers all of this week. What are you hearing from people?
Well, I'm fair play to you for all of the attention you're given to the carers issue because I 100% agree with it needs to be totally relooked at. The volume of effort and work that's been done by Carers Ireland, Richie Malloy and all his team, and also so many others. But like a lot of carers simply aren't getting enough. On top of that, they're saving the state hundreds of millions, Fran. I mean hundreds of millions. So the whole area needs to be looked at. But the one I wanted to focus in on is the fact that as I sit here, I know of many people, elderly people, who are left in acute beds in hospitals for 6 months, 4 months, 3 months and 2 months. And that's a national scandal. Not alone is it the wrong care for them, the wrong care for them in lieu of their families trying to look after them, but also, and this is only a secondary condition, secondary issue, but it means that the topic we often talk about, acute beds not being available, are taken up. Yeah. And it also is €2,000 a night. So if somebody's there for 6 months, you don't need to be a genius to work out that that's 350 or 60,000 euros. Like, so I have been saying for a long time, and I spoke to the Minister for Finance about this week, that we need a plan for elderly care, national plan. People are living longer. That's great. More people have dementia. Trust me when I say I know all about that. But on top of that, we also don't have enough nursing home places. We don't have enough care places for people with dementia. And we are blocking hospital beds. And it is a national scandal. It is totally wrong. We need to ensure we have more people who are doing home care, so we can keep people in their homes more for longer before they even get to nursing homes, before they even get to acute care. And people are pulling out of home care. People aren't going to do the work because they're not being paid enough. And I believe we need a thing called an employment agreement, which will pay people proper amount of money per hour, travelling expenses, other expenses, so that more people do this work. It is hard work. I know all about it.
Very hard work indeed. The nursing home care, so many private nursing homes have closed down over the last while, and it seems then that there's companies, overseas companies coming in, and they're doing nursing home care on a kind of a commercial basis. Does that concern you? Is that the way forward though? Or no.
This is all part of the same discussion, Fran. We need a national conference. I put a video up on this on my social media. I don't know how many thousands of people watched it and have approached me and have come to me. Anything that isn't a public nursing home is for profit. And by the way, single owned or couple nursing homes that are owned by people or small companies, etc., obviously they have to make a profit. You're not going to be in business otherwise. That's not the issue. But when you've got large scale investment coming in from overseas, that is really talking about bottom line. They are not going to be, I suppose, at the same level as the family run or small run nursing homes, or even the large scale nursing homes that are run by good companies, good people. There's so many of them around there who do look after their residents. When you're coming in with large scale funding where it's for profit, it's basically not good news. And we as a country really need to invest to support the nursing home sector, those who are family oriented, privately owned, but also we need way more public nursing homes, and we need a plan for dementia care. I'm sick and tired of saying this. I face it every day in my own life. I'm facing it this week where I'm coming out of the studio and I have to check in with 4 families in relation to their loved ones who are left in hospitals in acute care for months and months and months and months. And I have to say, I'm embarrassed as a public representative that I cannot at this moment in time find solutions for some of them. I'm very hopeful I'm getting there. But I by the way, can I just say this? As a TD, they shouldn't have to come to me, but they have to. And that's not right either. This should be dealt with through the HSE process. And I speak to people in the HSE all the time in relation to this at various different levels, and they're racking their head looking for solutions. To be fair to them, they're bursting themselves to try and find solutions, but they're simply not the beds there.
And just briefly before I finish on this, is there a plan? I mean, when you speak to the Minister, is there a plan? Is there a vision for this?
No.
Just simply
the demographic, in fairness, I did get a good ear, I did, but like, we need a short-term, medium, long-term plan here. We need to be putting, many, many hundreds of millions into this. There isn't a plan in relation to dementia care. There isn't a plan in relation to how we're going to we have a demographic pinch point coming, Fran. Because of the nature in which the boom-bust cycle of our economy and people leaving the country and all of that down through the years, we now have a situation where we have an in-depth young population coming up, but then we also have a massive, big elderly population coming through as well, and then there's a kind of a hollow in the middle. But the elderly population, there is no plan for it. And that's my problem here. And I've been I can tell you, I look back, I've been saying this for a decade. And really, the plan isn't there. And I'm telling you, I will have floods of more people next week, next month, next year coming to me in relation. They do their best. They try and mind their parents at home. And they get whatever care is available. It could be allocated 10 hours, 15 hours, 20 hours. They'll never get them fulfilled, by the way. It's all very well government saying we're giving you 20 hours or 10 hours and there's more home care hours. And there is more home care hours. I have to acknowledge that. But there isn't the people to do them.
Can I move on to something else? On Wednesday night, the Dáil debated the civil law and defence bill. Now, part of the discussion, as you know, is centred on whether counselling notes from people who report sexual abuse or sexual assault should be made available in court cases, and the circumstances in which a judge should allow them to be disclosed. And you spoke about this during the week. You've spoken about this. You said you're of the opinion that no survivor should be at risk for the counselling notes being disclosed during a trial. However, as you know, the advice from the Attorney General is that a blanket ban would prove to be unconstitutional. So in other words, it could be thrown out of court. Yeah,
I've dealt with this now since last year. Counselling notes should not be available. It's as simple as that. However, the Minister for Justice did say that from advice he's got, he can't go that far. We probably would need a referendum, and if it needs be, let's have a referendum when we're doing some other referendums next year or whenever. However, the Dublin Rape Crisis Centre worked very closely with me and with the Labour Party. They came to us, they worked with us. They had a very well drafted amendment. I've put forward that amendment at committee stage and report stage. It has been rejected twice by the government. We had a vote on it on Wednesday evening, and it was rejected by Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael and the Independents. And it was a good compromise. It was to allow a panel to basically go through notes and to basically summarise and say what was available, etc. Knowing and acknowledging what Jim O'Callaghan said in relation to constitutional issues, in relation to legal advice, etc. And I don't understand. By the way, if he wanted to change their amendment, my amendment, alter it in some way but come across with the same ethos, I'd have had no problem with it. But he didn't. And we really feel that was wrong, because we all know that counselling notes, if they're going to be used in trials, well, then people who are absolutely in such a vulnerable situation will refuse counselling, Frank.
But do you not have faith in the judge's interpretation of what's going on, and therefore the judge's decision on whether or not to use the notes?
There's a line in the legislation which the minister put in the interests of legal certainty, or a phrase like that. I'm paraphrasing, but that means that you're going to have different judges taking different interpretations, Fran, and I'm sorry, but there's going to be cases where this is going to be so traumatic to those who have suffered such abuse. And that's the simple fact of the matter. I know you've had people on about this during the week. I couldn't listen to it because I was in the Dáil, but I've heard about it. I can tell you out straight, this is not going to solve this issue. And that is wrong, because nobody should be re-traumatised. Nobody should have a situation, not alone where they're re-traumatised, but they will not go for counselling. I know of people who will not go for counselling, even though they need counselling, because they think it'll affect a legal case. That is fundamentally bloody wrong.
And the interesting point that was made to us as well during the week, I know you didn't hear it, but was that it's the counsellor's interpretation of what they're hearing going into the notes as well, which adds another layer of complexity to the note.
And not only that, the counsellors aren't protected here either. So, I mean, there's another layer to this. It's wrong, it's wrong, it's wrong. If we need a constitutional referendum as part of another raft of referendums, please let's deal with this. Counselling notes should not be available. They're being used against people who've suffered enough trauma, and also which the one thing really worrying for me is people are refusing counselling because if they have a legal case, they know this could be used against them.
Your old friend, Labour councillor Michael Brennan, he indicated to us during the week, Alan, that he was considering his position with the Labour Party. And he said he's getting lots of flack about the party's position on various issues. Let me just play a few seconds of what he said to us.
Yeah, look, as I said, we don't seem to have an identity, and like, you know, we're very inconsistent, and we're not strongly connected to the ongoing things that are affecting people in day-to-day living. And I'm talking there like in relation to the likes of rent, you know, transport, healthcare, cost of living crisis. You know, I don't think Labour are getting the message to the people there that we are there to support them, we are there with an alternative. And I think that's the biggest thing that's lacking at the moment, is our alternative. We don't seem to be there with an alternative. But I think nationally, as a party, we are not getting the message clear out there. And like, the polls are telling their own stories.
That's very damning, Alan, isn't it?
Yeah, I've had long conversations with Chicken. I'll tell you one thing anyway, in fairness, with Michael, you certainly know where you stand, because I'm huge. I've massive time for Chicken. I'm really close friends with him. Myself, himself, Louise and Fiona work very closely.
Is he reflecting what you're hearing, though?
I'll tell you what it is reflecting. I'd be really, really worried if Michael Chicken Brennan wasn't concerned and wasn't upset about the polling, because we all are. We had in-depth conversations about this during the week as a parliamentary party. Labour Party always, and our TDs and public representatives, our councillors, senators, whatever, we've always had to work harder. We've always had to. I've been blessed that I've been elected in every election I've ever stood in, thanks to the people of Tipperary. But as a team, we work incredibly hard. And we have to work incredibly hard because we're a small party. We don't have the resources, the capacity of the larger parties. So we work incredibly hard. Sometimes I think what's happening here is the work on the ground, obviously, is going very, very well. I'm extremely happy. I mean, Chicken has sent in so much work into my office this week, in fairness to him and his team. But I suppose to cut through and how we're delivering our message nationally and in the Dáil and Shannon, I suppose that's where we really need to join that up with the work. We don't have the comprehensive amount of public representatives around the country. You know, there's lots of parts of, for instance, the west of Ireland, we don't have many public representatives. So from a polling point of view, if you were polling Tipperary or polling, down in around North Cork, where Owen Kinney is an incredible young TD, or Conor Sheehan inside in Limerick, or any of the others I could name, Mark Wall in Kildare, you wouldn't be polling 3 or 4%. So we need to, I suppose, we're very targeted. We need to focus in on how we're going to get our message across. But
your message, even since your own time as leader, Alan, I think that your message has changed somewhat. I mean, you've gone from centre-left to a left-wing party, and I mean that plays out in, like, Ivana Bacek in the last few days, wants to provide an amnesty for the thousands of illegal immigrants living here. I'm just wondering, is she reading the room, you know?
Well, to be fair, everyone has different style. I suppose Ivana has an incredible brain, constitutional lawyer, as somebody who's a professor of law. I mean, the two people before her in that role both became presidents of Ireland, and has a huge history as regards herself and what she has fought for, which is very admirable. Everyone has different styles, but it's not just a one person's situation. We all collectively have to, I suppose, make sure that our message gets across.
Well, do you play into that message, for example?
What message?
The one about providing an amnesty for thousands of illegal immigrants.
I don't think you're reflecting exactly what you said now, to be fair.
I'm reading verbatim what she said. It's here in front of me.
But let me just say exactly what that means. It's in relation to if we're going to have a process for dealing with people, are we going to continue with the same process for them that they came into the country? Or are we going to adopt the new process now, which takes place as regards what came into law today officially? And there are question marks.
She's reflecting what Sanchez did in Spain, basically.
There is a question mark in relation to. I have no issue, Fran, with people who shouldn't be in this country been deported out of this country. I don't think anyone in the Labour Party really has. If you shouldn't be here, if your asylum process doesn't work, if there's no reason for you to be here and your story doesn't stand up, then you shouldn't be here. However, there are people who are in this country who genuinely are asylum seekers, and obviously we have to deal with that, and we should deal with it in the fair and sensitive way. There are also many people, and this is the bit, and this is 95 or 6% of the people who are coming in here, by the way, who are coming in here and who are contributing. I don't care where people come from, as long as they work, obey the laws,
Right.
respectful. Wait a second now, because this is important, because this message, and I'm sick and tired of it, gets lost. I have people coming into my office who are caring for the people we spoke about at the beginning of this programme, and they're bloody well frightened when they walk down streets in this country in the evening. That is unacceptable. They're caring for our elderly.
But these are people from overseas you're talking about who are
Yeah,
working.
absolutely. 100%. That's the topic. These are
I
migrants.
was in Nenagh the other day, and people from Nenagh were telling me that they're afraid to walk their streets at night.
Well, I'll be honest with you. In every town in Ireland, you'll get an example of that.
Yeah.
By the way, a lot of the crime in Ireland is, it's not migrants. But yeah, of course you'll have situations. Of course you'll have situations where people are upset and frightened and all of that. But we have to be very careful. Our economy, our healthcare will collapse if we do not ensure that we deal with this topic and deal with it sensitively and appropriately. And I've said straight down the middle where I believe if you shouldn't be in this country, if your asylum process fails, I have no issue with the fact you should be taken out of this country.
But you
However,
see, your party leader didn't say that. She spoke about an amnesty for illegal immigrants here, not people who are working in our health and our hospitality.
If you're illegal in this country and your process has failed, well then I believe, and I know that I'm reflecting the Labour Party, you shouldn't be here. However,
but that puts you at odds with the Van
I have a different view and a very strong view in relation to people who come here who are migrants, because I have more first cousins outside this country than I have in this country. My own sibling lives in America. We would not be able to cope as a country, and I don't think this message is getting across. And some people, unfortunately, can't distinguish between the two sets: those who are here who shouldn't be here, and those who are here who should be here, who are over 90% of the people. And we need to ensure that. Well, one friend, this is a big worry here, because what happens, right? You've got large industries in this country that are dependent on people who come into this country and work in them. Otherwise, they would not be able to exist and would leave. You have a healthcare system and a tourism system and a hospitality system that would bloody well collapse. Right? Collapse everywhere around us.
Would you see?
You
have to begin to look at the core of why that is the case, because there's lots we could do by providing proper training at a proper cost for people in the whole healthcare business here. Our own people that end up leaving the country and benefiting other countries.
But Fran, I accept that I'd love to have a situation for instance, for training of nurses, doctors, etc. If we had a plan for keeping them here, i.e., whatever that is, as regards tax credits, as regards regards their fees in college.
But we prohibit them from that.
But Fran, ultimately here, somebody needs to look at the stats here. Even if you had all of these people, you still wouldn't have enough.
Yeah, but I mean, most people wouldn't argue with you about the people that we need now. But you do have to look at why we need so many. But anyway, that's a whole other.
No, Fran, I think it's not another argument, because I think you're missing the point here. With all due respect,
do you?
Yeah, I think you're missing the point here. You have industries inside in Limerick, down in Clonmel, here in Nenagh, right? Who have people who have come into this country who create wealth, because they are ensuring, by doing that work, that Irish people are employed. And if they didn't come into this country...
Who has a problem with that? I mean, we began this conversation by talking about the fact that your party leader was looking to provide an amnesty for illegal immigrants.
My issue is that we need to be careful. We're not sending out the wrong message to people who...
I'm only repeating what your party leader said.
No, well, Fran, with all due respect, we need to distinguish between those people who are coming into this country, who are working, who are contributing.
But should we always distinguish that too?
Well, I'll be honest with you now, Fran. Yeah. I'm around a long time. I can read the room along as well. And while we can, the majority of people can, there is a small minority of people who, in some cases, maybe accidentally, in other cases, quite deliberately, are not reading the room.
All right. Okay. Interesting. But are you taking from what Michael Chicken Brennan is saying in terms of he may be reflecting some of your colleagues. He may be reflecting, and
no, I've no issue with it. Myself.
But would you see that as a blow if he decided to jump ship?
I don't expect any. I expect to be in the same team as Chicken for the rest of my life. Chicken and myself are very close. Louise and Fiona as well. Fiona's going to become a mayor now in 2 weeks' time, all going well. So we've a very united team. We work very closely, and I expect that the issues that he said will be addressed.
A couple of other things. The plan for the major hydroelectric power plant in Silvermine. So that's.
I need to just clarify something here, Fran, in relation to that. Because there was some media on it. What their planning that has gone in for a lot of excavation, digging boreholes and all of that, Tipperary County Council. And then there was also an application nationally in relation to becoming a national strategic infrastructure project, which is a process you have to go through. They're the two planning applications that are gone in. The full planning application for the project looks like it'll go in next February. It is a massive application. It's one of the biggest private applications in the history of the state. It'll be one of the biggest private funded projects ever, if not the biggest ever. So that is the two sets of planning that have gone in the last 2 weeks. It is not the full application, just to clarify for people listening.
All right, okay, because I was a bit confused about that. But the potential of it is huge, isn't it? I mean,
it's like, and every day we go, we all know we need it more, friend. And by the way, we need more than just one of these. And there's other projects being planned up the country, I understand. Like, this will be amazing. You know, it'll power 250,000 homes and bring huge employment to the area. And I'm so glad to be working with Siga Hydro and Darren Quinn and the team.
And just before I let you go, I was speaking to Jim Ryan there about tickets.ie. Really unfortunate situation.
I raised it in the Dáil during the week, Fran. And you know what? Fair play to Jim and the team who have keeping the show on the road. I have huge sympathy for him. I raised it in the Dáil with the minister. Like, how in the name of God can an organisation like that hold on to money in their own bank account and go wallop? It is scandalous. So we're working with Jim. I've raised it. I was actually on to him this morning as well. Just a couple of other things, Fran. I just want to congratulate the Nenagh Order of Malta, who have fundraised, and you know about this, Fran. They've fundraised, and Vinnie Savage in particular, a legend in Nenagh. And they've got their ambulance. And I really want to acknowledge that, because it's an incredible achievement. The people of Nenagh and surrounds have basically put their hands in their pockets and raised the money for this. So I just wanted to acknowledge that, and just to let people know that I expect that planning for the new shop in Portroe in my own village is going to be going into Tipperary County Council imminently, because in fairness to the Gleesons in Portroe, they served us for the guts of half a century, and a new shop will be going, a planning application will be going in there soon. Lots of people have been asking me about it. I thought the best way of telling people was probably on the air. And finally, to say that I was delighted that I was onto the Minister for Tourism in the Dáil, speaking about tourism locally and trying to promote the Shane McGowan Trail. And he said he's going to look at it. So hopefully,
it's a great initiative.
It's amazing. Every week I'm meeting people who are around. And very last thing is there's a lot of housing going on in Nenagh. Nenagh has probably the largest amount of housing being built in any town in Ireland per capita at the moment, and it's great to see it, the progress that has been made. I know on CBL some of the social housing is available. There's a huge amount of applications in for a small amount of houses that have yet come available. So just bear with us. More houses will become available in the near future.
All right.
So I just wanted to get that across.
Thanks for your time today, Alan. Thank you, and good morning to you. That's Deputy Alan Kelly speaking to us from our Nenagh studio this morning. 1800 938 007. News and information is coming up.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the second hour of Tipp Today. 1800 938 007. Now, huge reaction to my conversation with Alan Kelly, and most of the reaction around what we were discussing where immigration is concerned. Let me just bring you a little taste of what's coming into to us. Fran, Alan Kelly makes great sense, but why didn't he do all of these things when he was a minister and in power? The only thing that came from that government was the water charges. Alan Kelly is one of the few politicians in Tipperary who had the chance to be a minister. Why wait until now to push for change? Can you ask him this? Many people in Tipperary would feel this way. Well, I presume you're talking about Irish Water and the setting up of that during Alan's term in government. I suppose what he would say to you, and he's well able to speak for himself, what he would say to you is it was very different because it was following the crash. Money was scarce. It was a time of austerity and getting the ship back sailing again. I suppose that's what he would say to you. Somebody else was on to say, tell Alan that no Irish people have an issue with genuine immigration. We love to see people coming here and adding to our society. What people don't like is illegal immigration. Aren't we told by the government to avoid crime and report incidents? But in this case, when we do, it's seen as being racism. When you ask Alan about the Fair Deal scheme, I'm going through it at the moment, and it's very difficult when you have family members who are unwell. Well, that's for certain, and apologies that we didn't get time to put those points to Alan. We had loads to get through this morning, but thank you for all of your text and WhatsApp on that. A recent discussion on the programme about the practice of churching generated a huge response from listeners who shared their memories and their experiences. The tradition, as you know, involved new mothers receiving a blessing before returning to church after childbirth, a practice that was common in many parishes for generations. The debate, I suppose, is whether it was genuinely a blessing by way of thanksgiving for a healthy birth, or was it some form of purification because the new mother was deemed to be unclean in some way. Well, Dr. Clodagh Tait from the Department of History at Mary Immaculate College has been researching churching in Ireland, and she joins us now to discuss this. Good morning to you, Clodagh.
Good morning, Fran.
And thank you so much for coming on with us, and many congratulations. I've been reading some of your research, and it's very impressive indeed. There appears to be a difference between how women viewed the practice and the interpretation of the church in some way. Is that fair to say, Clodagh?
I think so, yeah. What we found, myself and my colleague Judith Hurley, found in the various sources is that actually there was quite a difference between what priests thought they were doing when they were churching women and maybe what the women themselves sometimes thought was actually happening to them. It seems that a lot of the clergy didn't have much training or much kind of knowledge about the kind of theology behind churching, and didn't necessarily see it as purification or cleansing, saw it as kind of thanksgiving, whereas a lot of the times the women were reporting that they thought, or that their mothers had told them, that it was cleansing or purification of some kind, or that there was some sin involved in giving birth that needed to be cleared before they could return to the church.
And a lot of that thinking seems to have come just from your research, I see, from Pishogues almost.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's quite interesting that there seems to be kind of two almost parallel sets of thinking around churching. One of them based in theology, and one of them based in kind of what historians or folklorists might call popular belief or traditional belief, where fairies were believed to have a particular influence over women at that kind of vulnerable time around childbirth and the period of recovery after childbirth. And there was also concern that fairies might interfere with infants or very small children in some way. And in that context, it seems that many people saw churching as almost a means of foiling the fairies, of kind of protecting women from the attentions of the the fairies after their birth. So actually, within the Irish folklore tradition, you can find quite a lot of material on this idea of fairies having an influence on recently delivered women, maybe stealing them away for their own purposes, putting a changeling in their place. And it was kind of believed that churching might assist in protecting women from the attentions of the fairies, and cattle as well, because you could church your cow as well. You didn't get the priest for that. You could just do a DIY job on your own cattle.
It's incredible, isn't it? And of course, it's not just the Catholic Church, according to your research, either, Clodagh.
Yes, churching was part of the ceremonies of the Church of Ireland, the Anglican churches in these islands, up until the 20th century as well. Anglicans had a slightly different focus of their churching ceremonies. In the Book of Common Prayer, it's set out as a churching of women after Thanksgiving for the birth of a child, commonly called the churching of women. And so the foregrounding there of the idea of thanksgiving for a safe delivery and blessing of the woman at the end of her ordeal, it's kind of put to the forefront. And this is as a result of kind of fairly strong, robust debates in the period of the Reformations in the 16th century, where some Protestant women actually rejected the idea of churching altogether. So Anglican churching is kind of a compromise that retains the ceremony of churching, but focuses it on thanksgiving rather than purification. At the same time, in the Church of Ireland tradition, you do come across some mentions of the idea of cleansing or purification.
Yes.
Right up until the 19th and 20th centuries as well.
And what about that, purification and cleansing? So therefore the perception is that the new mother was unclean in some way. Where does that come from?
Well, you had somebody talking to you earlier in the week, Betty, who had researched this, and she did a good job, I think, of explaining the background of purification within kind of ancient tradition, Jewish tradition,
yes,
where you needed to be purified after shedding of blood in any way, whether through wounding or something like that, or as a result of childbirth. So, of course, then within the Bible, there's a mention of the mother of Jesus, the Virgin Mary, being purified, going to the temple after her childbirth to make her offerings. And since it's in the Bible, then it gets adopted into Christian tradition, but also, because it would have been the tradition in the area where Christianity sprang up, it also gets adopted into Christian tradition. And so, the various Christian churches will still celebrate the purification of the Virgin Mary on, I think it's the 2nd of February, Candlemas, which would have been a big occasion for people to attend to their churches in Catholic tradition to get candles blessed on Candlemas that you would keep for various purposes during the year. So there's that kind of consciousness within the tradition of this purification of the Virgin Mary that maybe kind of also shapes people's understanding of churching then.
Hearing from a number of our contributors as well, it seems that churching was done in different ways in different places, so it was sort of localised in some way. Is that your experience as well?
It seems to be the case. There were changes in the 20th century. So in the earlier 20th century, the ceremony involved, in the Catholic tradition, involved the priest kind of leading the woman into the church building from the church porch or from the end of the church to the altar. And then there were changes in the 20th century where that kind of idea of kind of leading the woman in is largely disposed of, but it does seem that in different parishes or maybe in different dioceses there's slightly different kind of interpretations of how and when churching should take place. So some people talked about approaching the altar after Mass, and that churching might happen then. Some people talk about the churching taking place at a side altar, or there might be kind of special times that there might be a sign on the door saying churching at 5 o'clock on Friday, and that the women would come along at that stage. So I think sometimes it depended on what suited the local clergy best. So there are kind of local variations there in practice, certainly.
And also something that came up, I think, was it yesterday, we heard from the daughter of a lady who was churched, but it appears that the ceremony of churching was done by a nun. So did it not have to be a priest?
Oh, fascinating. I missed that. No, I have never heard of anybody other than a priest.
Yes, it was in Port Yuncula Hospital, and what happened was that the mother insisted on being there for the christening of the child in the hospital, so I presume there was some health issue or something. But she couldn't be there until she was churched, and the nun just literally got on with it, gave her a candle, performed some sort of ceremony that made it okay for her to attend the christening.
Yeah, I'd imagine that there's nothing in place. This is not a sacrament. It's something that I suppose technically could be carried out by somebody who is not a priest. But that's a really interesting variation.
Yeah, isn't it? And again, it's localizing it, I suppose, to some degree as well. The other thing, and it's probably controversial, is churchings usually required a payment of some kind.
Yes, and that, again, there seem to be local variations in how that payment was applied. In the Church of Ireland tradition, you were expected to make offerings at your churching. So, I mean, that might be just what you could afford. Local tradition in Catholicism might be quite different. Within Catholicism, it was considered that the priest couldn't technically charge for baptism, the sacrament of baptism, because maybe somebody would go to some other church to be baptized instead. But you could charge for churching. So in some places, baptism and churching are kind of wrapped up together, and the idea is that you need to pay a fee to the priest for the churching.
And I think you have examples of church. You have examples, I think, Claude, of churching being delayed because the Jews weren't paid.
Yeah, there's some really interesting accounts from the early 19th century where it seems that the Catholic Church were seeing this as a way of making some money, particularly for church building projects. The Diocese of Tuam comes up a bit, or the Archdiocese of Tuam comes up a bit, and there are complaints there that priests are withholding churching from women until they pay the appropriate dues, but many people couldn't afford the charge, even if it was only a couple of shillings. So therefore they were being left without churching, which was a big problem because in the tradition of the local area, a woman who was not churched was seen to be unlucky, vulnerable to the attentions of fairies. She wasn't supposed to prepare food or engage in certain tasks until she was churched. So this was seen as a very kind of cruel and very kind of devious way to make money from the plight of these women. For sure.
And that brings up the whole social obligation on the woman to be churched as well, because the neighbours, they played a part in this.
Yes, you could really see that one of the drivers of churching is almost the idea of respectability. You know, what is expected of a respectable woman within society, that she, you know, goes along with all of the social and religious conventions of her communities. So we actually see that, you know, some of the pressure to be churched comes from other women. The women in the community looking at the new mother, kind of assessing her abilities, assessing her the possibility that she will be respectable or not. But also mothers have a huge influence as well in encouraging their daughters to be church. It seems to be that mothers, when Judith was interviewing women in Limerick who had been churched in the 1950s and 1960s, it was their mothers who are the main drivers for their churching, who keep on mentioning the churching to their daughters, who keep encouraging them to be churched as well. And again, that comes out of maybe the idea of family respectability and showing yourself to be amenable to all of the social conventions, but also there's concern there as well, the kind of remnant of the popular tradition that their daughters might not get well properly unless they go and be churched at the appropriate
It's
time.
interesting. I'm reading from your own research as well. After childbirth, a woman will not enter any other house or make or bake a cake or do household tea, and not being allowed to wash her face, comb her hair, or wash clothes. I mean, it's incredible. It's real Middle Ages stuff, isn't it?
Well, you could see it as Middle Ages stuff, but you could actually see this as actually maybe protecting for women a period after they had given birth. They're not supposed to make bread. They're not supposed to do any cooking. They're not supposed to go outside their houses. You could see actually that this could be quite.
Oh, I see what you mean. So, in terms of a time of rest and recuperation, is that how you're viewing that, Clodagh?
Absolutely, you could see it. It was a tradition amongst the middle and upper classes up until the 20th century to have a period of kind of what was called lying in after childbirth, that you don't do very much, you don't leave your house very much for a number of weeks after birth. And, that's all very well if you're a woman who has servants and so on to do the work for you. It might be a bit more onerous on people from the lower sections of society who need to get on with things themselves. But you could see it maybe as a way of protecting women, giving women a protected time after birth to recover, to get to bond with their baby and not to have any major responsibilities on them during that time.
I mean, just finally, are you surprised that there is such an interest in this, Clodagh?
I'm not surprised.
I mean, I'm still getting stories in here. I'm just looking at the screen in front of me, following along with our conversation here. Loads of people sharing stories about their mothers and
I'm not surprised at all, because it's kind of part of women's stories and women's recollections that maybe have not had much attention. Even the folklorists didn't tend to ask about things to do with childbirth and what came after childbirth until relatively recently, and the historians have been interested in women's history, particularly from the late 20th century, but there's so many areas that we could still explore. So people haven't been asked about this, but they remember all of these ideas, either their own experience or the experience handed down to them. And of course, there's been a kind of colouring of those memories as well in more recent times, where the churches perhaps have come under question for, other aspects of their treatment of women and children with time. And so, it's kind of part of that bigger story that people want to be able to tell that story. So it's great to have the opportunity to hear these stories through either the work of historians, but also through the kind of work that you're doing in prompting people to remember these.
Well, thank you indeed. Are you going to publish?
Yes, the article by Judith Hurley and myself will be out in a journal called Women's History Review as part of a bigger special issue on motherhood in Ireland. Some of the articles are available free to read on the Women's History Network already, and hopefully our article will turn up in the next couple of weeks there as well.
Well, most interesting, and I was delighted to talk to you. Thanks, Clodagh. Thank you. Good morning to you.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye to you. That's Dr. Clodagh Tait there from the Department of History at Mary I. Back in just a moment.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, puck on. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Welcome back to Tipp Today. Now, big response to that conversation there with Dr. Clodagh Tait, and we will get back to that, and we'll get back to some of that text and WhatsApp as well. But thank you we're always delighted to hear from you. Be Like the Sea is a memoir and a leadership book by Mary Gleeson, one of Ireland's first female naval captains. Now, the book traces her journey from growing up on a farm in Tipperary to commanding naval vessels, leading major drug interdiction operations and navigating significant personal challenges as well. And I'm delighted to say that Marie is with me in studio. Good morning to you, Marie.
Good morning, Fran.
And lovely to see you today. Congratulations to you. What a read. I mean, really, it was my companion for the last few nights, and it's a terrific book. But just to begin with, how did a landlubber from Tipperary end up in the Irish Navy and eventually commanding your own ship?
Yeah, God, definitely back in the community school, the career guidance teacher wasn't telling me to join the Navy back in 95 or 96. Yeah, so I come from a small farm outside Cashel in the parish of Borlandwella, and grew up on the farm, would have been out with my dad. There was no help back then, so I would have been in straight from the get-go. Loved sport, loved being outside, and I had an uncle in the army, Michael Clancy from Cashel, my mum's brother, and my granddad Hugh Clancy, who was in the post office in Cashel. People might remember well, Hugh, course, yeah. He actually served in the emergency as a signaller in the Curragh. So the post office had its own signal corps up there. So I suppose...
He lived down at the bottom of the rock there.
That's right, yeah, on the Camas Road. Yeah. And so there was photos of him in his uniform in the Curragh. My uncle then was in the army. So I had seen the army. So the army made a lot of sense. So I applied for the army the year I was doing my leaving cert, and I just missed out, like literally just missed out. So I was down in college in UCC and was going to go for the army again, and was doing all the interviews, the psychometrics, the fitness. And I remember Michael saying to me, do the Air Corps and the Navy as well, because the Navy had just taken women. And I said, I'm not doing the Air Corps, I don't want to fly, and I'll do the Navy one because they'll never take me. And then we got the letter to say that I was offered this cadetship in the Navy. So it was as big a shock to me as it was to everybody else. But I had kind of come a little bit off track at that stage. You know, my academics had gone a little bit askew, so I was probably a little bit unsure of where my future was headed. And then the Navy came up, and I think when I got it, it was like, right, okay, at least I'm in. And now if I go up to the Curragh camp and I run around that boot camp and I show them how great I am on the ground doing the tactics, how fit I am, the army will take me. So I think that was my plan, go up there. And the boot camp was really tough back then because there was no smartphone technology. I'm sure a lot of your listeners, Fran, will remember payphones, putting the coins in. And when you've got like 50, 60 cadets, you've 2 payphones at the end of the cadet lines. Like those boxes filled up, so and you couldn't contact
you were
home.
Isolated,
yeah.
Largely, weren't you? Yeah.
Like my family, like I'm the eldest of 6, so Noel Luna had 6 of us, and I can remember they're coming up to Newbridge on a Saturday, and we'd have to sit in it. There was only certain areas you were allowed to go into, so into the coffee shops or into the hotel, the Cadine, and you had to dress up really formally, so everybody in Newbridge knew you were a cadet, so you couldn't go and do anything untoward. But you really didn't see your family. So I mean, I think that was a big piece, being thrown into that environment. But I think one of the pieces for me about being in the military, that team spirit is built through those kind of experiences, because we didn't know each other. And then within 3 or 4 weeks, literally, it doesn't matter where you come from in Ireland, doesn't matter what family circumstance, what background, you're all in there, you're all out of contact, you're all there together.
And I mean, those of us who haven't been in the army or in the Navy or whatever, that notion of building, taking you down to build you back up again, I'm always fascinated by that. But is there value in that? Because that happened to you, didn't it? I mean,
I think you don't see the value at the time, and you don't see the value when, and I don't mean this disparagingly, when you're a civilian, because in a civilian world you do a regular job, you go home to your family. I suppose when you join the military, there's an aspect of you have to realise that you're not part of a normal 9-to-5 job, that you're going to be away from your family and friends, and that it's 24/7, and that also you're going to be asked to do very tough things in your career. So I think that training is very much about taking you in, not to break you down, but to get you to see the world from a different way. So it's no longer about you as an individual. It's about a group perspective. And we talk a lot now in businesses, where's your mission statement, your values, your goals, your strategy. A lot of that is military terminology. So in the military, we're learning that from a military perspective. So your purpose is to go and save lives at sea. Your purpose is to take the drugs off the street. You always have a really clear purpose in the military. And then we've got good systems of training, and then everybody is aligned. So you make that. But I think what's really important for your listeners is to understand that it's not about, taking away someone's liberties for no purpose. It's when we were up in the Curragh and, your parents were told they couldn't come on the Saturday because they were taking the pass off us because we'd done something wrong.
Yeah.
When you're on a ship and you've been at sea for 4 weeks and you're so looking forward to coming home, like when you've been gone for a month and you come back towards Cork and you see Roach's Point Lighthouse and you are just dying to get home. But then the search and rescue mayday goes off, or there's a shout, and the ship has to turn around and go back out because it's safe.
No matter what plans you've made.
No matter what plans. So if you're told by naval operations that you're going to respond, so I suppose, how do you train somebody to be prepared to deal with that mentally? Because it's really tough when you've got to turn and go back out.
You were often thrown into situations you didn't agree with, you didn't want to do at the time, but they proved to be exceptional for you. And I'm thinking of the Asgard in particular. And would you tell the listeners about that? Because it's fascinating.
Oh my God, I don't know how many mariners or sailors you'd have in your listenership, Fran, but I definitely wasn't from that cohort. So I'd never seen a real sailing vessel. So when you go down to the naval base, it's the big grey ships with the engines. So that's sailing for me.
Yes.
And then we were told we were going to do a transatlantic on the Asgard, and the Asgard 2 was a brigantine. So if your listeners could imagine a small version of a pirate ship, the old fashioned,
a tall ship, isn't it?
Tall ship. But a brigantine is quite a small vessel. You could only really have less than 30 of us on board, and it's very, very tight, cramped. But I went down to Crosshaven, and I still remember our class officer driving us down into the yacht club in Crosshaven and seeing this pirate ship, wooden, timber, and thinking there is no way I'm going across the Atlantic in that thing, like no hope. So myself and Trish Butler, who's actually from Nenagh, Trish's parents Tom and Anne are teachers above in Nenagh, so you these two Tipperary girls with no maritime background looking at this thing going, no hope are we going across the Atlantic. So we actually tried to get out of it, but our boss, our commanding officer at the time, saw what we were at and he said, no, go, it'll be the opportunity of a lifetime. And actually mid-Atlantic on the Asgard, we were becalmed, we lost the trade winds, so we've no engine, we're waiting on wind, you're stuck in the middle of the Atlantic, and then you realise, like in the night time, like the stars in the middle of the Atlantic, like Fran, I can't describe it for your listeners, like it's absolutely stunning. Bioluminescence, so when the ship cuts through the water, there's this light that comes out of the water. It's called bioluminescence. It is gorgeous. And then one of my colleagues got hit by a flying fish. So like they exist. So I think, and then we sailed across towards, and we sailed through the tip of the Bermuda Triangle. And then we sailed and we went up and we got onto the Eliethna in New York, and we were in New York for the Millennium 4th of July, and like I had no internet. I'd come off the farm. I didn't have a passport when I joined the Navy, and suddenly I'm in New York and Angelica Houston is walking up the gangway. Teddy Kennedy is there. Wow. These people you've just seen on television going into Times Square. Like it was, but I've been really lucky. Like I got to go up into the Arctic Circle. I've been all over Europe. I was down in Chad with the United Nations. I served on a peacekeeping mission. So in my nearly 21 years, like I got to travel a huge amount of the world with the military, which is, a fantastic experience.
A lot of the book, and indeed what you're doing now, has to do with leadership. And you saw some amazing leadership, but you also saw some dodgy leadership along the way as well. Would you just tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I have a chapter in the book called "A Ship is Only as Good as Her Captain" with a question mark. And I think you learn about leadership and teams and people in books and theory and the classroom, but then you go out on board a ship. And my first captain was phenomenal. Like I just was in awe of that person, respected them so much, the way they dealt with us. So they still had the respect of the crew and they could still tell us to do and give us orders. But we followed those orders because we would have followed him anywhere. Like he was that type of person. But then unfortunately at other stages in my career, I dealt with difficult characters. And, for me, I couldn't really understand why they were making things so difficult for us, because you have to imagine being on a ship, a really confined space, 40 crew members on board. And like, one thing about having a really difficult captain that nobody likes is everybody's very united in the fact that they don't like him. So we were very collegiate in this really tough environment where we were being pushed to our limits. We were being asked to go above and beyond all the time. It was physically very tough out there in terms of we were just constantly working with no break. And yet he isolated himself by being this really difficult character. So when I was writing the book, I was thinking back on it, because that's a long time ago, going, what must have been going on in his life that he wanted to be out there in that environment and be mostly on his own and have people not like him because he thought this was how you should be a master and commander style of a captain.
Yes, the austere leader.
And it wasn't that he was, but he just pushed us so hard. We just never got a break. And you push people that hard for a month, people do break, and people do, it's physically too tough and it's mentally too tough for people. So I think for me then as a captain, when I was in command of the LEIFA, recognising that as a personality type, I'd be very driven, very motivated. Maybe that thing of being one of the first women, I've got to prove that I'm good enough. So I would have been very like that. And I think I would have driven my crew quite hard, other than we had a very difficult personal circumstance that we had navigated, myself and my husband John. And unfortunately, we lost our little baby boy, Kieran, when he was 6 days old. And that's a very emotive part of the book.
It's a heartbreaking part of the book.
Yeah. And I'm conscious that my family are listening today and stuff. So, I don't want to go too much into it, but you think your life is perfect. You're on this track. You're going to be captain of a ship. You're married. You've got, the perfect scenario: house, car, job, life, friends. And then literally this one conversation with a paediatric cardiologist in the Coombe changes everything.
Yes, and you described yourself going into that situation. You were happy and you were looking forward to the future.
So excited.
And then boom.
Literally.
You got the news about Kieran.
Yeah, literally. We went from finding out we were having a little baby boy, and I was delighted because my husband's dad was killed tragically in a farm accident. So I really was so delighted that we were going to have a little boy, and then to be told about his heart, and then basically to be told to go to England for a termination. And I was 6 months pregnant. So first baby.
But is that where your leadership kicked in? Because you said, no, I'm not going to do that. So was that part of your training almost that you were bringing into your personal life at that point?
I do look back, and myself and John have spoken about this when I was writing the book. I think John was the dad who was sitting there getting all this information, a lot of it overwhelming because it's a lot of medical information, and there's a lot of technical stuff, and you have a full team of people. And then I was sitting there, and as the mother, I think just barely functioning, trying to keep yourself upright, just not processing what's happening. But then my military skill set, I was trained to be the captain of a ship, to make decisions in high risk environments that have big impact and consequence. So I was almost like I was living two personalities or two lives. I had this devastation as the mother who was pregnant with this baby that I was being told wouldn't make it. But then, because you're trained in the military as well, when you're making big decisions, when you're in these big high pressure environments, to maintain control of your emotions. So you're given techniques about your breathing, about how to maintain your heart rate, so that you can be in the best place to make a clear decision. So I definitely feel like those skills that I had learned in the military were very helpful. And I had done a degree in anatomy and physiology as well. The Navy paid for that. I don't know why, because it didn't help me much in my military career, but it definitely helped me then. But we made the decision to continue on, and Kieran lived for 6 days, and we spoke earlier on, and I know that's hard for people to hear, and I don't want to rush by that, but I think one of the most important parts, and I know there's a lot of people in Cashel will remember my granny Nancy.
Yeah. If there can be a lovely part to this, I think that this is a lovely part to it. Yeah.
So Nancy Clancy Hughes' wife, Nenagh, would be well known in Cashel. She was a lady who ended up nursing a lot of her family, because siblings of hers and her family were ill at different stages. So she had minded a lot of people in her life, and I think a lot of people in Cashel will remember her. She was always running up the main street with bags to shop, and she was always running. That was Nenagh. She was always running. So Nenagh had been very sick at the Christmas, and we had been told here in Clonmel Hospital that her kidneys had failed and that she hadn't long to live at the Christmas time. Yes. And I had Kieran in January, and on Friday the 13th of January Nenagh, who had been with it all along and was telling everybody at home, tell Marie the baby will be fine, the baby will be fine. And Nenagh passed away on Friday the 13th, and Ciarán was due for his surgery on Friday the 13th. And I felt that morning, you know, it's a terrible thing to say, but like I felt a lift when Nenagh died, because I felt above in Dublin that she had gone to take his place. So I think for me, that was keeping me going. And then when he crashed, and you know, I'm not going to go too much into this today because I can't.
Of course.
It's easier to write it than to say it, Fran, yeah. But, you know, when Ciarán then didn't make it into surgery and got very, very sick, Nenagh had passed away, and I can't remember who the parish priest in Cashel at the time was, but Nenagh was to be buried on the Sunday. But because Nenagh was very religious and you know, really had a faith, he said, no, we'll bury her on the Monday because she deserves her day and her funeral. And Ciarán died on the Sunday, and I rang my dad Noel and my uncle Michael and Father Des, the naval padre. They were all involved. And the parish priest in Cashel, when Ciarán passed away, he didn't want to have the funeral with Nenagh because he couldn't see how we would bury our child within 24 hours. But the three of them went in, and parish priests don't normally turn, but between the three of those strong male individual, you know, who were, a lot of men have been very influential in my life, but whatever the three of them did that night, they convinced him to let us bury Ciarán and Nenagh. And we had a funeral in Cashel that I think a lot of Cashel people will remember, because it was such a huge funeral for Nenagh and the Clancy family. My uncle, so there was all the army uniforms, but I don't know how the Navy did it. But in less than 24 hours, there were so many Navy people turned up. But for me, that kind of piece that Nenagh has, Ciarán, has been a huge strength. And one thing about the book, Fran, you know, when I was in that courtyard or the churchyard that day of the funeral, some lady from Cashel, who I can't remember who it was, she came up to me and she said to me in the churchyard, she put her hand on me, one of Nana's friends, a lady in her 80s, and she just said, I know what you've been through. And I never knew that that lady had lost a baby. So when I was writing the book, there were a couple of things in my mind about showing, you know, that life in the military is great, that girls can do it, that you don't need to be perfect to survive. But I think for me, the story of a survivor, because when I was struggling after we lost Ciarán and I was trying to refine my way, it was very hard to find back in 2012 people who were talking about losing babies or coming out the other side of it. So I think any kind of traumatic loss, when you share your story, like, you know, we were talking before, I've been sitting on edge for the last 4 months wondering how this book would land, and it's a very honest book, and I think you can, it's very vulnerable. But for me, if one person buys the book and reads it and it helps them to deal with whatever they're going through, it's been worth putting it down on paper, because thankfully we have two little girls now, Leisha and Murren, and it's Leisha's birthday. It was her birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Leisha. She's 11 now. She's almost a young lady.
She encouraged you to write the book eventually.
Yeah. Leisha is the two girls are phenomenal, Leisha and Murren, but Leisha and Murren saw me speak at a fundraiser for the Pregnancy Loss Research Group in UCC. Professor Keelan O'Donoghue, who was our obstetrician, who's a phenomenal woman. So we did that in Kinsale last year, and because it was for charity and it was pro bono, they gave us a room in the hotel and the girls came down with us. But they saw me speak on stage for the first time, and they were very little when I left the Navy, so they didn't really know me as a Navy person, but they saw me speak on stage and talk about all the different things, the drug bust, the search and rescues, all that. And 3 weeks later we were sitting on the couch at home in Cashel, and Leisha asked me would I write a book about a girl from a farm who went to sea. And I had thought about writing a book over the years. I'd been asked about it, but I knew if I was going to write it, I wanted to be really open, honest and vulnerable, so I'd always held off.
Yes, of course.
But once she asked me, like nowadays, Fran, like, you know, my dad's always given out to us as parents because he's like, we can't buy them anything, we can't give them anything anymore, we can't do. But I think for me to deliver that for her the day that she found out that the book was actually going to come out, like, you can't buy that kind of excitement. But also, you know, it's lovely to think that our kids see us that way because they don't put any limits on us, and I think that's the main thing for me.
I think the only pity I have about the book, and it's a small thing, is that when you did eventually decide to retire from the Navy, when you look back, you said an interesting thing about it not being the vision of the Navy that you had in mind, and I was disappointed for you about that.
Yeah, like one thing I'll say is there's been a lot of change since I left. I left 7 years ago. I think, you know, when I joined the Navy, I worked for some fantastic people, and one of them was Vice Admiral retired Mark Mellett, who was the Commodore, and Mark, when I worked with him, he was this really driven visionary, and he had this vision, and a lot of the senior people in the Navy had a vision that we would have a 12-ship fleet, a 15-ship fleet, because your listeners probably don't know that Ireland is actually a really huge coastal state. We're a small island nation, but we're a large ocean state because our maritime area is actually up to 10 times larger than Ireland. We have a massive maritime domain, huge potential, huge opportunity. And a lot of us in Tipperary just saw the sea when we went on a day trip to Tramore or Clonea for the sandwiches and the swimming. But actually the sea brings so much in. But I think, there was this vision for the Navy to expand, but then we had the Celtic Tiger, we had the bust, then we had the reductions. And I suppose, you're trying to advise people who don't understand what it's like to be at sea that we should invest in the maritime. So I think, the budgets weren't coming, the numbers were reducing back, and we weren't focusing on trying to keep the brilliant people that we had. So I was watching phenomenal people walk out the door to Stryker or Abbott who really wanted to stay in the Navy but couldn't afford to stay. But I think that is now changing, and there's so much more focus now than there was 7 years ago on the sea, because COVID showed us about, supply chains when they break down, and now people in Tipperary realise that a lot of our stuff comes in on containers on ships. The sea is really important to the potential of offshore renewable energy, and that's a whole, I could be here for hours talking about all of this. But I think for me, when I left, there was a sense of frustration that, the Navy was not where it needed to be, and it was going backwards rather than forwards in terms of funding and support. But I think thankfully 7 years later we're starting to see more of a focus, and even the numbers of people going in are going up now, because it is a fantastic job.
You also saw the Women of Honour programme on TV, and again that disappointed you and saddened you, I'm sure.
Yeah, I think first of all, for me, I wanted to acknowledge in the book, I don't know how many of your listeners will know the Women of Honour campaign, but, like every organisation, you've phenomenal people, but then you've bad people as well. And when you have bad people in a hierarchical system with a lot of power, as we've seen in other hierarchical systems with a lot of power, when a bad person gets into power, they can do bad things. So, when I listen to that documentary, and I have huge respect for the likes of Karina Malloy and Yvonne and Honor and others who were in it, who told their stories of horrendous experiences that they had in the Defence Forces. And I was just so upset because that wasn't my experience. And then you're sitting there going, how could I have had this fantastic experience and they didn't? But I think for me, one of the things that I've been very strong on is, I think more women and girls, more people of diverse backgrounds should join the military, because diversity means you think differently. So it doesn't matter about being a woman, it's you think differently. And I think the systems are really strong in the military, but you need good people in there to implement them. And like when I was captain on the ship, I was a female captain, and I happened to have a female engineer and a female navigation officer and 2 strong female non-commissioned officers on board. So there was 5 of us, and I think the guys on board that ship knew, everybody on board that ship, sorry, I'll step back, every member of our crew knew that we had a zero tolerance policy on board for anything. Bullying, harassment, sexual harassment, any of those kind of things. Everybody knew that we would never tolerate anything like that. So I think you need more good people to make sure that the systems work, and you need the good people to call out the bad people. And I have 2 young girls at home, and I know the world has changed and we're coming through this social media and everything. I'd ask everybody, male or female, if you're listening to a conversation that's inappropriate, if people are using words for women or girls that are wrong, you should call that out.
Call it out.
Yeah.
Call it out, absolutely. The book is a marvellous read, and just in case people are wondering, have we gone through it all? No, we haven't even touched. There's so much adventure in it, and so much more to it indeed. You have your own company now, and you do talks to people about leadership, don't you? And,
well, if you'd asked me when I was leaving, so my intention was to take a sabbatical at home to try and be like my mum, to be an amazing full-time stay-at-home mother, because my mum had given up her job and was on the farm. My dad and my parents had given us a fantastic upbringing, and we moved home from Cork to Tipperary. That was part of the journey, and I'd like to give a shout out to Borland Oella and the parish, because as a community they welcomed us back in, and my 2 girls are in every club possibly going in Borland and the church, and we've just got a great parish. But I think when I came home, I thought I'd take a number of years off and then go back into a multinational. My husband works for Boston Scientific here in Clonmel, so I thought that's where I'd go, HR director. I ended up starting my own company, leadership development, so I speak around leadership and teams, and I work with companies, because an awful lot of great people are working in environments and they don't know how to get on, that collaboration, that esprit de corps, that team spirit. And a lot of, for example, simple things, you know, you're working on a ship with somebody you don't like, but you can't get off the ship and they can't get off either. If you focus on all the things that you don't like about them, your life is going to be miserable. So you have to find ways to work with people you don't like. And actually, that kind of piece for people who are in an office environment, sometimes they just focus on all the things they don't like about John. They don't focus on the fact that John is the engineer who's running the budget or the project manager, and that's their job. So I do a lot of work that seems to me quite straightforward, but for people trying to deal with other people, because we're all very complex, us people. So actually working with people is brilliant, but absolutely frustrating at the same time. So I do a lot of work with just helping people how to function better in teams.
Well, as I said, the book is a fantastic read, and even there to listen to you, so some fantastic nuggets just in those few sentences. If we want to pick up the book, it's called Be Like the Sea. It's in local bookshops, isn't it?
Yeah,
as well?
John has it in the Bookworm in Thurles, and Eason's in Thurles and Clonmel have it as well. And I just want to say we're doing the Cashel launch next Friday night, the Tipperary launch, but we're having it in Cashel. And Suzanne has been fantastic in the library in Cashel. So 7 o'clock in the library in Cashel on Friday night, and then we've an after launch party in Foley's for anyone who wants to keep the party going.
Yeah.
But I've had such fantastic support locally, and already the messages from people who are coming, like, I just want to say to everybody how much I appreciate that, because it was very difficult to do this.
I'm sure it
and
was,
even
yeah.
as I'm talking to you, I'm still getting emotional here.
Yeah.
But like that, you know, when people read the story or listen to the interviews and they come back and tell you how it's impacted, or you hear messages from people who don't know anything about us, you know, that's what's made it all worth it.
All right, well, I would highly recommend it for what that's worth. It's called Be Like the Sea by Marie Gleeson, a fantastic read. Lovely to meet you. Lovely to meet you.
Thanks,
Very
Fran.
much
Thank
indeed, Marie. News and information's coming up.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Over half a century driving the people of Tipperary and surrounding areas with quality, reliable and economical vehicles, new and used. Call the sales team today to discuss your next car or van on 067 24 111.
Thanks, Pat, and welcome back to the final hour of Tip Today. Big response to that conversation there with Marie Gleeson, and Conor is in Nenagh. He said, I spent a week on the Asgard training vessel in 1989, which was a great experience. Coincidentally, I was speaking to somebody about it earlier on this week. Well, there you go. A lot of people on to congratulate Marie. Yeah, it's available in the Bookworm in Thurles and in Eason in Clonmel and in Nenagh as well, to the best of my knowledge. Now it is time for our Friday panel, and a panel that needs no introduction at all. Joe Leahy is with us, Murish Walsh and Alison de Vere Hunt. Good morning to you all, and thanks for coming into us today. Knife crime back in the spotlight following that stabbing in Belfast on Monday night. A man suffered life-changing injuries in the attack. A suspect appeared in court on Wednesday. The incident has renewed concerns about the rise in knife-related violence right across Ireland. Now, coincidentally, before the Belfast attack made headlines this week, we spoke to Joe about the worrying rise in knife crime and the factors contributing to it. It was a bit of a coincidence, all right, Joe, wasn't it?
It was, wasn't it? An unfortunate one, Fran.
Yeah, for sure. And since we spoke, have you thought about this in light of what happened in Belfast, Joe?
Well, I suppose, as I said the other day, like, you know, it's the problem, I suppose, there's several problems. One of the problems, like with knives, is that it's so easy to carry them. It's so easy to conceal them. As I'm repeating myself now, what I said on Monday to you. But the reality is, like, if there's a gun you're trying to get, you have to get bullets for the gun. You have to get all these kind. Whereas the knife, you can conceal it. They're available in every house, in every home. There's a block of knives everywhere, so it is easy to do that. I think one of the things that I don't like to see, I suppose, is that the way the convictions are coming. When a person is convicted of this, you know, you see him get 5 years in jail, and then there's the last 3 are suspended or something like this. I don't like to see that happening. I honestly think that we need to be a lot more severe. We need to send out a message there that this is not tolerable, that we will not tolerate this. Like, knife crime has happened, you know, ad infinitum in this country. Like, right, it has got progressively worse, but it has happened for years and years and years. It's not a new thing that's happening. And I think knife crime is, you know, I was listening to, the crime prevention officer there yesterday was the other day before John McCormick, you know, and the onus, like if I'm found with a knife, the onus is on me to say that I have to prove why I had it, you know. So if you meet a butcher with a knife, well, that's part of his rig, that's part of what he does. But if I'm caught in the back of your house at 4 a.m. and I have a knife in my possession, I have to prove what I'm doing with it and why I have it. And then when it comes to people, and you know, you can so the difference between threatening and inflicting an injury is you know, it's paper thin, you know, because your skin is literally paper thin. So you can inflict fatal injuries very, very quickly on a person. And we spoke the other day like about the advent of drugs, and I suppose the advent of racism, the advent of just a comment, you know, that I say, like, you know, get out of my way, curry. You know, all of a sudden the violence just drives up through the roof.
The response is extreme.
The response is extreme, and that's coming across both in, you know, in religious, in drugs, in moral behaviour, and in everything else that goes with it. But the reaction is instant, like, it's just, and it's terrible to see what's going on and the violence that comes from it.
Alison, what are you making of this?
Well, I suppose, you know, it needs to be straight down the middle. You have a certain section of society, Sikhs, who are allowed to carry a kirpan, you know, that's small, kind of sword-like
ceremonial
knife,
yeah.
You know, so it needs to be a blanket ban. You know, our culture doesn't allow people to carry a knife. So if you come to a country where that's the culture, you abide by that culture. For what, you know, it's religious reasons, it's too dangerous, you know, and predominantly one of the main reasons they carry it is for protection. You know, historically we haven't needed to carry anything for protection in Ireland, but things are getting to a stage now where this is going to be much more difficult to actually rein in, because Joe mentioned there about sentencing. We haven't the prisons. Where are we going to put people? We haven't the prisons for the people, say, that are committing the crime as it is. The amount of suspended sentences is off the charts. The amount of people that are left out and then commit a heinous crime, and they should be in jail.
And you said something to us off air that was very damning indeed. You said the worst is still to come.
Completely. Like, we have a police force that has never been smaller in, say, comparison to the amount of the population we have now. I was speaking to a guard a couple of weeks ago who mentioned Dundrum and how the massive effect it had on them, going against their own people and being ordered to do this. And their opinion was this was wrong. And what they told me was the amount of guards that are leaving the force before retirement, before pension. They might be entitled to 80% of the pension. They might have 2 years or 18 months left on their contract, and they are gone. These are experienced guards. So, like, you know, we have new recruits and that. Our numbers are way too low anyway. But it's like science, it needs time. You need to gather experience. And I really worry, and I know we're going to speak about the Migration Pact, what's coming down the track is we're not able to handle it. We're not part of the Schengen area. We will not have the same protections as other, say, nations. And as I said to you, Fran, 2 years ago when I was on, it's a dark day for Ireland when that passed in the Dáil at 10:39 at night. Like, that vote should have been during the day. But you see, bring it in at night, have less people there, the usual, say...
And we will get back to discuss that in detail. Mary, what are you making of knife crime in general, and what are you making of what happened in Belfast?
Well, I don't like the narrative that it's suggested that it's migrants or asylum seekers that are just involved in knife crime. I find that a little bit offensive, if I may say so. I think knife crime, I would agree with Alison and Joe on the point that there is a rise in it, but I would agree that we don't have enough Gardaí on the ground. In relation to what happened in Belfast, I know we'll be talking more about it. I mean, it was one individual who was here in Northern Ireland in another jurisdiction legally. And to say that or to suggest, and that is the suggestion out there, that this is just a migrant problem. I don't think Ireland has a huge migrant problem. I think Ireland has a racism problem. I think there's a huge difference to be made with that. I think just coming back down to our jurisdiction, I do think we need more.
You don't think that we have a problem with migration?
No.
At all, no.
And I wouldn't say at all. Yeah. But I don't think we have...
Even with the illegal aspect of...
Yeah, but what are the figures, Fran? A lot of scaremongering going on. What are the figures of illegal migration?
Well, you see, part of the issue is that we don't have the data. You see, it's not being made available to us.
And Micheál Martin has said over 80% of people coming in. Yeah. So that's a huge number.
But 80% of what number?
Hundreds of thousands.
I don't believe that, Alison. I really don't. I mean, if you're looking at someone who's fleeing a war in Sudan, or fleeing genocide, I would go back as far as 2015 with the Syrian war. I remember reading, and an aunt of mine who was out into Lebanon told me in 1979, she said, "Don't worry about the Lebanon. If Syria ever breaks up, the world will change because of the tribal nature of Syria." So I often wonder, if we didn't have the migration from Syria, would we have this rise of far right? Would we have had Brexit? Would we have had the rise of Farage, Rupert Lowe, all these people? Would we have had Trump? Yes, there is an issue around our border controls, but I don't believe it is as bleak or as frightening as people are making out.
Right. What Brenda Power said in the Mail today, though, that it's not far right to react with revulsion to medieval savagery on an Irish street.
Of course it's not.
Yeah.
Of course it's not.
Right. But do you not take that the people who did react, I'm not talking about the extremists who went out and burned people's houses, but the people who did react to that were branded as being racist?
Everybody has a right to protest. Everybody has a legitimate right to have concerns about migration, be they Muslim, Christian, Jews, whatever they may be. Everybody has a legitimate right to know that we have the service to take in people from wherever. In the same way people in America have the right to have concerns about the undocumented Irish, as they're called. They're illegal migrants as well. So this is not just an issue that is pertaining just to Ireland. I mean, Brenda Power is right in what she says. It's not far right to react like that. I mean, any normal thinking person would act with revulsion what happened on the streets of Belfast. But it's one individual. And we saw the same thing happen in Ballymena. But to react with an organised pogrom, which is what we saw in Belfast. I mean, I grew up, as everyone here did, watching this stuff, albeit on a black and white television, people being burned out of their houses. We've seen back in the civil rights in the 60s in America. This is what we're talking about. But we're not able to have a mature conversation about this. I'm not saying Alison or Joe or myself, but that's what we're doing. But I mean, this is giving rise to the likes of Malachy Steenson and these people on the far right here in this country, who are going into marginalised areas. Let's be honest about this now. Who are going into marginalised areas, be they in inner cities, and be it in Belfast, where the education levels are the lowest in the UK. The A-level results will come out whenever, at the end of August. And I guarantee you look at the figures that will be given in the Guardian newspaper or the Times newspapers about the school attendance rates in the whole of the UK. And parts of East Belfast will be the lowest. These people in loyalist areas feel disenfranchised. They feel disconnected. They feel as if their voice is not being listened to. And there's a whole lot of areas going on. So, sorry, Fran, I think this is important.
Yeah.
So there are politicians, supposed politicians, who have organised these riots. There are people in paramilitary groups, despite what Jamie Bryson might say, have organised these riots, organised pogroms. Let's call it for what they are: racist attacks, burning people out of their
Before
houses.
I go to Joe, do you want to take some of that, Alison?
Yeah, I would have to disagree with that. Like, I suppose if you take case in point, the village of Dundrum, it's the last census had a population of 200 people, and now there's as many immigrants. If that's not, say, kind of, if that's only minor influx to a community, I'd say I'll take my hat off. I think what's really happening too is that we're looking at the likes of Michelle O'Neill coming out with the vilest racism. People are understandably upset. This isn't a one-off. We've had, say, the guys up in Sligo getting their throats slit. We've had Aisling Murphy. We've had the case that's going on in Parnell Street at the moment. We've had the 10-year-old girl out in City West. So there is a pattern starting to form. And you see...
That's scaremongering, Alison.
No, it's not scary. These things actually happen, Mirish. I'm not, you know.
They did happen.
So, but the problem is, politicians and mainstream media come out and say, "Oh, the people who are say upset over this, they're racist, they're right wing." Like, the thing is it right wing to be a concerned parent? Is it right wing to not want, say, things to change irreversibly? I don't believe it is, and I think, to be honest, we've reached a point now where our government haven't control of the situation. It's fine to take people in if we have the means of supporting them. But unfortunately, look, we've nearly 1 million people on the hospital waiting lists. Everything's broken.
Yeah, and what are you going to do with the people?
Yes, Joe.
But 1 second now. But there's knife crime. We're talking about knife crime. There's knife crime. A serious concern I would have about knife crime is to deal with young people, Irish people, dealing in drugs. Youngsters dealing with drugs, who, when you get up in the morning, as I said the other day to you, Fran, you know, Fran has the shower, he puts on his deodorant, Joe has the shower, oh, where's my knife? These are young people who are totally bombarded in their head, that Joe owes €150 to some drug dealer. The end is nigh, what will he do? So he gets this thing for his own protection. All because he's driven into this out of pure fear and utter intimidation. Just nothing to do with immigration, good, bad, or indifferent, on any front. And I've seen people taking their own lives, and it's gone on and on and on and on. And people are carrying knives left, right, and centre solely because they believe that it's for their own protection.
And is that a bigger issue?
Well, I think it is, and I think it's come back to carrying knives. And I think it's a huge issue that's coming. And I think we have it out there. And I think it's all coming from drug dealing and intimidation. And I honestly, I swear on that.
And where Mirish was questioning some of the figures there, for example, is it about time that we had proper data given to us?
And this is, I suppose...
Because if you're hiding something, it seems like you have some reason to hide it.
Correct.
You know
and I suppose we often spoke about this here before about, you know, when a war starts, the first thing to go off the table is the truth. And this is exactly what you're saying. We need facts and figures, actual facts and actual figures. Like Alison has said there, the number of people that have been involved in what you're saying, the number of people that have been involved in what I'm saying, and the number of what Murish is saying here. We need to look at facts. What are the facts? What are the people? What are they doing? I'd have a huge issue with some of the aspects of the, I suppose, the habits of some of these people, immigrants that are coming in. But this is back to knife crime here. And knife crime, my heart goes out when you see a young fella of 15 or 16 and he going around there like carrying this knife as if he's a tough man. He's not even a big child.
Where were the riots for Joanne McNally's murder?
See, this is deflection.
It's not deflection.
It is deflection.
It's not deflection. Crime, like a lot of those people that come into Ireland are hard-working immigrants.
They are, but the problem is it's the unvetted that's the problem. It's people that are coming in illegally. Nobody in, like, if you look at the likes of Cahir, in 2018, Cahir was the most culturally diverse town in Munster. Yeah. The community gelled very well with, say, all the inhabitants. I think there was over 70 nationalities.
People working in the meat factory.
Exactly. I remember stood at the gates of Cahir for 9 weeks, meeting different people that were coming out, and they chatting away and, you know, engaging and asking us why we were there, and it was perfect. But all those people came in here and they had documentation. You don't get on a flight somewhere else and with your documentation and magically arrive in Ireland.
Do you want to take that, Mirish?
Yeah, I totally agree. Anybody coming in here unvetted, irrespective of where they're from or what religion they are or what ethnic background they have. Like I've travelled over to the States with work, and I've had to go into a room and be questioned as to what I'm doing here.
But you don't have to do that to get into Ireland. In fact, you can be devoid of documents and you can still get it.
That's my problem. Or sorry, I don't see that as a massive debating point. That has to be done as a matter of fact. What I'm talking about is that, yes, what happened to Aisling Murphy was abhorrent. Was like, I'm not condoning any, like, nobody could in their right mind. But what I'm saying is that these are the things that are being highlighted, right? And I'm not suggesting for 1 second, Alison, for 1 second that you or anybody who holds those views is racist. Please don't suggest for 1 second that I'm a racist.
But you did say that we have a problem with racism.
We have a problem with racism. We have a problem with racism in this country. We do have a problem with racism in this country. We're seeing it 100. We're seeing it with 150 miles up the road in Belfast. We're seeing it in parts of our city centres.
Right, but are these not just groups of people who would get involved in this kind of thing for any subject, really, along the way?
But it's a problem, Fran, in the same way that knife crime isn't... Like, we just started talking here about knife crime.
Yes.
And immediately it turned into about illegal immigrants. When Joe made the point that it's about young Irish people, young 16, 17, 18-year-olds carrying knives. Like, we have to get to the issue as to why that's happening.
Well, many of them carrying it for what they perceive to be their own perception, their own protection.
And the rise in drug taking.
Yeah.
And I don't drink or take drugs anymore, right? But I don't, right? Okay, I'm not, like, full disclosure, but it's mind altering, this stuff, right? So that's the issue. But what I am saying, Fran, is that we need to have a reasonable debate. I mean, one thing I want to ask you, Alison, the people in Dundrum, did any of those people commit crimes?
Well, I can't answer that. Say we're not. Say, I know there was police cars going in, say, all the time. There was records kept of all of that by the people at the gate. But say, I'm not in the police force. I'm not a politician. I don't have the access to that information. I'm not accusing anyone of saying anything. But I think it's, like, if racism were being all of a sudden. It's a buzzword, and right wing. It is, because in 2018, like I said about Care, we weren't a racist population then, as you're calling us now. Why are we racist now?
Excuse me. I didn't call you racist.
No, I meant as in third party, as in general. You're saying we've a huge problem with racism in Ireland.
Yeah, we do.
So that's what I mean, say, in relation to the bigger picture. How are we racist now when we weren't racist 8 years ago?
But do you think, I mean, and you're calling for discussion on this, Murish, do you think that we need to leave the racist allegations just aside and talk about the facts that are of concern to people?
I'll have a debate with anybody, about our whole immigration problem. But I won't debate with somebody who objects to a mosque being built in Clonmel, or who objects to a synagogue being built in Carrick. I'm an atheist. I don't go into any church and start protesting outside the church about what's going on in there.
Yeah. Well, did you go along with that, Joe?
Yeah, I do. In the main, I think everybody has to do their own thing. I believe that you believe in what you believe in yourself. I don't agree with them all, but I still feel you have to understand them, you have to accept them. Like, I happen to just a peace commissioner. I have people come into me with different religions to sign forms, and the man, I won't call him a gentleman, but the male stands and he just clicks the fingers, and he says to the wife, hand over this and hand over that, and she's 4 feet away. But you respect them. That's their beliefs. That's what they do. I wouldn't do it, but that's what they do. Like, that doesn't mean I'd say, hi, get out of the office, you don't do this, you don't do that. But you must respect them. That's their ways, that's what they do.
And finally, I do respect Alison's concerns. I'm not trying to backtrack it. I don't agree with her, but I do respect her concerns. I do respect the concerns of, my own son would be very much on the same page as yourself. He's 22 years of age.
A good lad.
Yeah, but like, we've had many debates at home. But the one thing I will say, Fran, like, everybody is entitled to have an opinion. In the same way, there will be two people outside the old Heaton shop in Clonmel either today or tomorrow, inviting people to join up for a Bible study. I would have no problem with that, in the same way if there was two people standing there to say, come, if you read the Quran, you will be saved.
All right, okay, let me take a break. We're back with our panel in just a moment.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. Now is the time to pick up your next van. From the award-winning Peugeot Partner van to the Expert and the load-lugging Boxer van. We have big vans, high-roof vans, long wheelbase vans. You'll find them all at Slattery's Garage Puckon. See slatterysgarage.ie.
Tip FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage Puckon. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
And welcome back to our Friday panel. And Alison and Murish and Joe are still with us. The EU migration asylum pack comes into effect today. We formally opted in, as Alison pointed out earlier on, in June of 2024. The government has spent the past 2 years preparing the framework around this, which will change how asylum migration is managed right across the EU. I spoke to Padre Tobian from ANTU and Matthew McGrath earlier on this week. I spoke to Michael Murphy about this and many of our listeners as well. Murish, do you want this? First of all, the attempt by the government is to say that this is not just an Irish problem, it's an EU problem and we need to deal with it at an EU level. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, it does, and it doesn't. I'm not interested, I'm not concerned about the national sovereignty part of it, like Matty and Padre Tobian. One part of it that would concern me is the Tribunal for Asylum and Returns, Peel, or the TARA bit of it that has been set up. That bit, and it's being consistent with what I was saying earlier. The Minister for Justice of the day can appoint powers to control, powers to people to adjudicate on that panel. And I would be concerned about who would be the Minister of the day, whether they would be someone of a far right thinking or of a far left thinking or whatever. And I don't like extremes. And
right, but there will be a framework a legal framework that will have to be worked to.
Yeah, there will, but that's one bit that would worry me. I don't think there's a fast track to this. But one thing I would say overall, Fran, is that I think I've no problem with it on the whole. I think it has to be EU based. I think that is where if you look at the countries like Greece, Italy, those Mediterranean countries, that's where a lot of these migrants are coming from. I do also think that it is a basic human right to seek asylum in another country if you're coming from a war-torn, genocidal country. But it goes back to, again, to the vetting system that I think we're all in agreement with, that we do need to have it. I mean...
Right, but this notion that we may have a financial obligation of some kind if we decide that we have enough people here, and if Italy and Greece are overrun,
that's another bit that I would be uncomfortable with as well. I would be uncomfortable,
right? Because the possibility there is that it would be a huge bill, of course.
That's another bit I would.
Joe, what do you make of this? I know Fine Gael obviously supporting this and seeing it as the way to deal with immigration.
Well, I think my basic concern, Fran, I suppose, is a very simple rule of right and wrong. I don't think we should be allowing any people in here that have convictions, or shall I say serious convictions. Let me clarify that now. Like if you happen to rob an orchard, it's not going to make much of a difference. But if you have a serious conviction, you shouldn't be allowed in here. I think everybody should be vetted and should have been vetted. I always believe that they should have been vetted as well. And
the aspect of the pact about the better border identity security checks, do you think that that's going to help?
I think it will help. I think everything that has to happen will help. Now, people can come out and argue the toss and say we didn't know this at the beginning. And I'd also wonder, aside to this, when Brexit came about, how much did that affect us with the controls on the border and all that type of thing? If England were still in the EU and, the 6 countries were still in the EU, would that have made it a bit better for us? We don't know, because because it's past tense now. But I would honestly think that we need controls, let it be in hindsight or not, we need them anyway. And I do think I welcome this. I think that it's not going to be the answer to all the ills, but I think it'll be a step in the right direction.
But we have an open border with Northern Ireland, so therefore we have an open border with the UK. We saw what happened with that unfortunate incident in Belfast where your men came from Paris to Dublin and then went up to the Sixth County. So we're always going to have that now, and they're not part of the EU. So are we going to...
Well, that's my point. So how are we going to police that, for example, to use that word? Or are we going back to the days like when I was above on the border and you're sent out to a 4 crossroads in the middle of nowhere and you're left standing there and nobody knows anybody and you can't let these people up and down? I don't know how that's going to be managed. I honestly don't know how it's going to be managed, because the border is like driving, it's like going on holidays in Ireland. You know, you're in the north, you're out the north, you're in the north, you're out the north as you go along the road. And it's virtually impossible to do it.
And if the likes of Farage ends up in Downing Street, for example, you can imagine what we're going to have here then, because so many people will end up leaving UK, coming down.
Correct, and absolutely, and herein, but of course, it's all about problem fixing, I suppose. Like, what is this? I would honestly hope that this will go some way towards stopping or prohibiting people that we don't want in the country.
Generally positive about it. Alison?
Well, fixing a problem, the horse has bolted. We were one of only 2 countries, us and Denmark, that had an opt-out, and our government said no. We're not part of the Schengen area, so that you know...
Do you just want to explain that then, Alison?
So basically, Cyprus and ourselves are, the 2 countries that aren't part of the Schengen agreement. So it means that there won't be... Ireland cannot join the Schengen area border now. So in relation to EU migration and asylum, it makes things more difficult, because it means that we're excluded from PAC's common screening regulations and return border regulations. We now have to maintain our own borders, and look how good we've done that so far. So the thing is, look at Denmark are managing the immigration policy very well. We had that option as well.
Even though they have a left-leaning government, which is kind of
exactly. But the thing is, what they have is they prioritise their people, and unfortunately, that hasn't happened here. And like, there is one rule that's in the EU that if you're seeking asylum, you go to the first safe country, and there you stay. That didn't happen. That, say, Sudanese man that's up in Belfast, who, you know, say, did that horrible, heinous crime the other evening, because he was in Paris and should have stayed in Paris if that was his first country of arrival. Helen McEntee, say, many of those countries offered to take back people that had come in that should have been at the first point, but they said no, we didn't send them back. Our, say, social welfare system is so good that they want to come here. Like, this is, when I spoke to Fran on the radio 2 years about this is something that has hung over me like a dark cloud. That was a dark day for Ireland, and I said it to Fran, and I was hoping that we may have, you know, some chink of light, that there might be something in our constitution that could be brought up that would write this off, that it wouldn't come to fruition. But unfortunately now, as of today, it is.
And do you see anything in what Jim O'Callaghan is doing, for example, and seeing the way that, you know, things are changing, even with how Sinn Féin is talking about immigration?
But what can we do, Fran?
Do you think it's too late?
I think it's not only just too late, but I think we're so incompetent. Our level of vetting people, like, I remember reading about a case in a man was brought into Cork prison, and the Pulse system doesn't tie with the Interpol system. And say maybe it does now, but when they put this man into, say, prison in Cork, they found out he had 26 other aliases in a number of different countries. You know, these are things that we're not used to here. We're used to crime, and we're used to, you know, and drugs are a major issue. But we need a different type of intelligence, because culturally there's an awful lot of different, you know, say, like, look at the Nigerian kings that will transfer $1 million to your bank account, all that kind of stuff. We're not up to speed with all that kind of thing. So the thing is, we need another form of intelligence. We haven't got the basic form as it is to vet people on the way in. So I think, to be honest, this is a disaster waiting to happen, you know, and it's in motion. Like, there's thousands of migrants that have been deported, told to deport. The government don't even know where they are. Like, you couldn't actually make it up. You'd nearly think it was satire, but unfortunately it's true. It's true, I think, what they say, we're the worst run government in the world, because like we are screwed now because of our GDP and our landmass, because we're going to have to take more than ever.
But just 1 second now. When I'm talking about, I think there's a huge difference here between illegal immigration and immigration. I see a huge amount of people here from different countries, and they are working morning, noon and night.
Nobody's disputing that. That's deflecting, Joe. Sorry to cut across you.
Excuse me. No. You're the one that's deflecting what I'm saying.
No, but the thing is, nobody's questioning the legal immigration.
Okay, just give Joe a chance to speak.
Allow me a chance to say what I want to say.
Joe. Yeah.
I've met people out there and they can't get people to work for them. I was at a funeral the other day in Featherton and I met a building contractor, a small building contractor, a couple of fellas working. I said, how are things? How's she cutting? How's it going? And he said, not too bad. I said, geez, if you could only get someone to do a day's work. And you have all these people here. You're talking about the social welfare system. The Irish were amongst the biggest, what shall I call, receivers of social welfare for years and years and years. And you have generations and generations and generations receiving social welfare that never did a day's work in their lives. So let's call it as it is. It's not all about immigration. What I'm talking about here is illegal immigrants coming into this. People that are coming into this country with a pile of convictions. That's what annoys me.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about too. I'm not talking about legal immigration. I'm talking about illegal.
Is that an issue where we conflate those who are coming in here to work?
This whole thing of the Irish went everywhere and worked hard and never got anything, and this whole thing of illegal and legal. We're all, I think, on the same page here that we're talking about illegal immigration. We're talking about people that come in and for, say, some unknown reason have no documentation. I know when I go anywhere, my documentation, I'm making sure that I check it 3 or 4 times, that I still have it, that it's in my bag.
How do you know, Alison? Could I just ask you one question out of respect? You said that there's thousands of people.
Because that's what the government have told us. It's thousands of people. They say over 80% of those that have come in.
But to go back to, and I think again, 80% of what?
But isn't that part of the problem? Because we don't have the data, you see. We don't have that. I mean, even where knife crime is concerned.
We don't. So I think saying that the government are saying thousands of people, I want to know, I would like to know, Alice would like to know, Joe, I think everybody listening to the show.
We'd all like to know.
Yeah, we'd like to know 80% of what. And I think maybe with this pact, we're going to have to produce those figures. Okay. But I mean, I know, Fran, just that in parts of Boston, the tricolour is viewed like the swastika.
Why? Because we're deemed to be fascist and stuff.
And that we came over here taking our jobs, type of thing. And I agree with Joe. I mean, I spent last Christmas 12 months in a hospital in Waterford. I spent the entire Christmas there. I met one Irish nurse.
I know, but I had this with Alan Kelly earlier on this morning. That's a whole other conversation. But I mean, we need to be preparing and giving opportunities for our Irish people to be qualified. I mean, look at the point system. I mean, it impedes people from getting into study to be doctors. And
we do, Fran, but they're all going to Australia. They're all going to Canada. Do you know why? Because we don't pay them enough.
Yeah, well, they're all the things that we need to look.
You've hit the nail on the head there, Merge, to a degree. We don't pay them enough. And that's, the reason why so many are coming into Ireland too, because we'll pay them less. And you might get 20, say, of one, country living in a 3-bedroom house, whereas the Irish don't live like that.
Really quick, because I have one more thing to get through. Yes,
very quickly. On that. The last thing as well, on Joe's point, do you know how many apprentice plasterers there are in Ireland?
No.
The whole of 26 counties. 38.
Yeah, well, there you go. Let me take a break. Back with our panel.
Tipp FM's Tipp Today.
With Slattery's Garage, puck on. It's time to change. Test drive the award-winning range of Peugeot hybrids and fully electric vehicles at Slattery's Garage today. See slatterysgarage.ie.
If it matters to you, it matters to us. Call Tipp today on 1800 938 007.
Welcome back to our Friday panel, and the final item we'll get to today with our panel. RT has removed a link from its website to a Pride-themed reading guide produced by Children's Books Ireland, citing age appropriateness concerns. The book, What's the Tea, by the transgender author Juna Dawson, came under scrutiny after questions were raised in the Dáil about its suitability for children. Now, children's rights advocate Sandra Adams spoke to us this week about her concerns around the book. Alice, can I start with you? Are you aware of the book? Have you?
Yeah, I'm aware of the book. I've just seen certain screenshots and that online. Right. I think it's shocking.
Just for people who don't know, I mean, the graphic nature of the sexual descriptions.
Completely, very, it's completely over-sexualised, say, downright dirty, and that to be, guided from, say, young children to 18. Let children have their innocence. But I think where there's a huge issue here, Ben Scallon interviewed Norma Foley last week, and she, said she knew nothing about it. But Charlie Flanagan has come out and said that in 2023, he told her about the contents of the book, and she laughed at him.
And several other books as well.
Yes, exactly. Another book by Juno Dawson as well, This Book is Gay. And a teacher has come out saying in 2023 that she emailed Norma Foley and she sent, say, parts of the book, say, to her. So this whole thing of I know nothing is not a valid answer. She needs to be hauled over the coals. These are our children. This is perverted.
Yes. And what does it say about the NGO then, Children's Rights?
Well, it shows that, to be honest,
Ireland.
say, what is their agenda? Or is it to corrupt the minds of young innocent children?
Well, I'm sure they would say it's to educate.
I don't need that education, so why would a young child or teenager need that education? That is not necessary.
Well, they would probably say to you that some young child who feels trans in some way, that they might need that because there's not much available.
Well, I won't use...
Sorry, I'm playing devil's advocate.
I know, but I won't use the words, say, like some of the sexual connotations that are in the book. Regardless of what sense you feel you're in, whether it's trans or gay or heterosexual, nobody needs some of the, we'll say in inverted commas, education in that book.
All right. Joe, are you across this book? Is it something you're aware of? Or?
Across. I like that word for an across. Yeah. I wasn't aware of it at all, Fran. Never heard of it in my life until Leanne sent me on the list there yesterday, and then I looked it up, and then I said, and the one thing that stuck out of my mind was children. That was the first thing stuck out. And I would agree with Alison, children need to be children, they need to be there,
Yes.
Having said that...
This is geared to 15-year-olds. Does that mean anything? Does that make any
It's geared younger than that too, Fran. It's not just... what I read was that it was 4 to 18, that it would be in the primary... Some of that would be in the primary, say, curriculum as well.
Right, well, I didn't say that. I didn't think it was going to be part of the curriculum.
But when it comes to education, when it comes to people being educated, I do know, of some people that, that were in that... They were over 15 actually, the people that I do know, and they went through a terrible time. They were they have come out as now being gay, but they didn't know what they were at a certain age. They were going through an extremely difficult time.
Yes.
Should that book be for them or for their parents? Probably for their parents, but not for them. And now, if they were 17, 18,
well,
or
some
what
of the
age?
instruction in it wouldn't be for the parents, I'd imagine.
Well, then, but the thing is, I didn't see the book, don't know the content of the book, but all I'm just saying is that it's about understanding, and about understanding what's ahead of them, and about all that. I haven't seen the book, but I'd be as I said at the very outset, I'd be very concerned about the word children. Children should be children, as Alison said. Children should be allowed to be children and develop and continue on.
I'm not sure how much of this you might have seen.
I'm aware of it. I heard your interview with Sandra. I agree with Alison. We're over-sexualising our children at a young age. I would be very simple. I have one thing that I'm quite proud of, is that I was one of the first heterosexual secretaries of a gay rights association. Something I'm very proud of. But... and I think there needs to be education around trans in secondary school, maybe from transition year up. There needs to be compassion based books about this. I think there should be books for parents on how to deal with it, because people do feel different, whatever that may be, that they may feel that they're trapped as a man in a woman's body, or a woman in a man's body. However, in saying that, some of the graphic nature, and I heard you call it out the other day, so I don't have to repeat it, is unnecessary. It's completely unnecessary.
However, I did say, I made the point to Sandra Adams the other day, that by the time a child gets to 15, they've been exposed to hardcore porn on their phones, Alison, and you know, by comparison, this would be tame.
Well, I don't know if I'd call it tame, and you know that.
Well, I'm saying by comparison.
Yeah, no, I sorry, I appreciate that. But you see, that would be put on the curriculum. So it's not all children would be exposed to hardcore porn. So the thing is, for the ones that are being protected.
Right, but this was just part of a list by RT for reading for Pride Month.
Yes,
right.
yes.
It wasn't about the curriculum.
And it was being put into all the libraries.
Yes.
And like, I don't know, the author of this has admitted on camera to being turned on by student/teacher dynamics. And that, you know, that he put his sexual desires in the book. He's come out and said that. He's recorded in saying that. Like, what is his qualification, really? How does that book end up on the syllabus? Like, how is...
Well, he would say to you that he is documenting his experience. His transition.
You know, but, like, to be honest, who's vetting this? Norma Foley has a number of advisors. Let's, for a second, play the devil's advocate that she didn't see it, even though I've no doubt in my mind she did. What about all these advisors that were never there before that are being paid to check out all this? And the NGOs.
What were they doing is what you're saying. Yes, Mary.
I know you have to go off here in a few minutes. I think one of the issues is that we need a lot of books to educate our teenagers about trans issues, gay issues. But however, this particular book that we're talking about, from the sections I've read of it, is not suitable. If somebody like myself, and the fact that, and I heard you make that argument to Sandra as well, and you're playing devil advocate, that children and whoever are going to be exposed to hardcore porn, it doesn't mean that this is right or wrong. To me, that's a moot point.
That doesn't excuse this. All right, we must wrap it up there. Great panel. Thank you so much to Alison, to Joe, and to Emirs. Thank you for that. Leanne produced, Stephen has the Time Tunnel on the Lunchtime Show. I'll talk to you on Monday. Look after yourselves in the meantime. Bye-bye.
Tipp FM's Tip Today.
With Slattery's Garage, Puck On. Main Peugeot dealers in the Premier County. And now stocking the full range of the luxury French car brand DS Automobiles. Book your test drive today with Slattery's Garage, Puck On. See slatterysgarage.ie.